Crushing it opens a protective shield that carries everyone out of the danger and back to the dark world. Lee Muk gives Baikwa a look. She reads it, and she pulls a beacon out of her storage ring. Before she can crush it, a hand comes in from the side and stops hers. She looks up in confusion and finds the hand is mine. She asks what I am doing. I watch a faint color come into those pale cheeks where my palm rests, though she plainly does not think I am taking liberties with her. I lift the beacon out of her hand and ask who said anything about going back. The commission is not finished yet. Her expression changes on the spot and she starts talking fast. I have not engaged that monster myself, she says, so I may not understand what it is. It is the proxy creature of this world, blessed by the world will, its realm already at legendary upper tier. Add 500 or 600 meters of body and vitality to match. On top of all that, it appears to carry the bloodline of some higher existence that pushes its strength well past everything else in its realm. She calls the draw simple bad luck and promises she will not blame me even if we fail. As long as we are alive, she says, there will always be another world to try. I am calm about the entire speech, roughly as calm as a man deciding what to eat for breakfast. I put the orange-level beacon into my storage ring and turn to look west. The familiar booming starts again right on cue. The last of the color goes out of her face. She tells me the unicorn turtle is coming back, and that I have to decide now or it will be too late. I walk toward the noise instead and leave her looking at my back. I tell her to relax, because fighting is the one thing we are actually professionals at. We did not go to enormous trouble forcing out this world's proxy creature only to walk away from it. Baekhyun falls in behind me at once, delighted rather than afraid. We spent hours killing thick-shelled turtle monsters to drag this one out, he says, and there is no reason on Earth to leave now. He adds that the higher the world level, the richer the resource output, which makes all of this good news. Cheongha is smiling, Will looks half-crazed with anticipation, and 09 is simply calm. Not one of them is moved by anything Baekwa said. The 5 of us are well away before she can assemble another argument. That leaves 4 of them standing there watching our backs, with Baekwa's brows locked tight and the other 3 silent behind her. Jo Kang asks, with real trepidation, whether we have any idea what that turtle is. One hit, a single hit, left the 4 of them severely injured. At full power, its strength could easily multiply several times over. Lee Muk says the 5 of us are clearly not weak. If the proxy creature came out because we were slaughtering legendary-level turtle people, then our strength is probably several times theirs. He does not enjoy saying it, and says it anyway, and it lands hard enough to silence the group. The goat-masked youth sighs that several times over is a despairing sort of gap. They have families behind them and enormous family resources spent on them, and some of us are rogue cultivators who came from nowhere. He has no idea how that happened. Then he changes direction. He says several times stronger still would not be enough. A conservative estimate puts that turtle at 10 times their own strength, and nobody knows what else it is holding in reserve. If it truly opens up, he thinks it might brush the threshold of mythical-level combat power. Dozens of them together would not be enough for that. The word mythical settles over the group and every face turns grim. Jo Kang panics openly then. They are far too close to the battlefield, he points out, and a fight at this level will have an absurd radius. In their current state, a stray ripple might kill any one of them. He adds the more flattering argument on top, which is that our side may hold back for fear of hitting them. Leaving would be a favor to everyone. It is a tempting case, and the group wavers. Any orange-level beacon tears space open and takes them home. Even after the one I took, they still hold more than a dozen. Someone points out that Baekhyun and I are carrying a beacon of our own now, so we can leave whenever it goes wrong. Jo Kang and the goat-masked youth both lean toward withdrawing. By their arithmetic, our odds against that turtle are dismal, and the risk dwarfs any reward. Baekwa and Lee Muk shake their heads one after the other. Retreating means voluntarily abandoning the operation. If our team completes the kill, the clear will have nothing to do with them at all. Jo Kang gets shrill at that. He demands to know what hour of what day this is for anyone to be thinking about the clear count. He insists it is flatly impossible for us to beat that turtle. He asks whether a hope that thin is worth standing in this kind of peril for. Baekwa shakes her head gently and tells him it is not a question of worth. Their lives were saved by us, and she is not going to run away alone while we are in a life-and-death struggle. Lee Muk agrees and offers a compromise. They pull back a certain distance and observe from there so they interfere with nothing. The time also lets them recover strength, so they are useful the instant an emergency needs them. Jo Kang's face runs through several colors. He calls the 2 of them impossibly rigid. They are core heirs, he says, whose lives concern the prosperity and continuity of their families. Those lives do not belong entirely to themselves. Then he begins to ask how they can risk that for a pack of lowly bloodlines, and cuts himself off. He tells them to do whatever they please and says he will not be doing anything so stupid. He is ashamed and irritated in equal measure. He knows perfectly well that this ends any chance of working with us again, so he decides to go the whole way. The Joe family is withdrawing from this operation, he announces, and he is taking back the 4 orange-level beacons the Joe family provided. Even Baekwa, who is cold by default, cannot keep her face still, and she stares at him in disbelief. Minutes ago, in what was plainly a certain death situation, the same man asked to be dropped so the others might live. That is not the conduct of a coward. She cannot fit the 2 versions of him into one person. He shakes his head at her disappointment and crushes the beacon in his hand. An orange light array unfolds on the ground. He asks whether anyone is leaving with him and looks hardest at the goat-masked youth. The youth hesitates a moment and then declines. Joe Kang pauses at that, then walks for the array without wavering again. At the edge he turns back and gives Baekwa the honest version. In a certain death situation he could give his life for her. He has to admit that with a chance to live in front of him, he probably could not. He certainly will not take risks for unrelated commoners. He says their paths diverge here, wishes her farewell, and steps in without hesitation. There is one more reason he is too embarrassed to say aloud, which is that he is terrified. Coming that close to dying has left his heart racing and his nerves in pieces. Surviving a certain death situation does not necessarily make a person braver. More often it makes them frantic to stay alive. The orange shield closes over him, crashes through space, and he is gone. Baekwa stands quiet for a while with his last words working on her. Then she looks over at the goat-masked youth and says she thought Hyo Minho would go with him. Hyo Minho asks, awkwardly, whether she really believes he is that afraid of death. She says nothing at all and simply looks at him, which is answer enough. He raises both hands in surrender and admits he did want to run a little. Then he explains it. Ever since his dear younger cousin Hyo Singyil died, the family has nobody left. They dragged him back out and started cultivating him again, a discarded pawn they had written off years ago. The Hyo family does not hand out resources for nothing. If he brings home no results, there is no telling how they will settle accounts with him. That makes a gamble the safer play. He shrugs and adds that they agreed to watch from a distance anyway, so there should not be much danger in it. The tremors roll closer while he talks. Baekwa nods and says the unicorn turtle is about to clash with our group, so it is time to pull back. The 3 of them use their own methods to retreat to a hillside and settle in to watch. Meanwhile, the 5 of us are moving the other way in peak condition, straight at the thing. The gap was never large to begin with, and the moving hill comes into our field of vision quickly. Baekhyun marvels at the size and wonders aloud how long something has to live to grow that big. Dozens of kilometers out, we can still feel the pressure coming off that mass. I tell him it has certainly lived a long time and that this world nurtured it with great care. Then I mention that I am picking up a hint of a familiar aura from it. He asks curiously whether I have seen this kind of turtle before. I have not seen the species anywhere. Baekwa said the thing seems to carry some powerful bloodline that pushes its strength past its own realm. There is exactly one such bloodline that smells familiar to me. I tell them it is a dragon, and the word gets a round of open surprise. My reasoning is simple enough to say in one breath, I carry a dragonbone warbow, and low as its rank is, it is sturdy enough to let me use my full strength. It also releases dragon chi attacks. Carry a thing like that long enough and the scent of dragon stops being unfamiliar. There is no mistake about what is mixed into this creature. We may as well call it the unicorn dragon turtle. The name lands and everyone looks harder at it. Once you know what to look for, the rugged, ferocious face genuinely does have dragon in it. Nobody had noticed until I said it. Judging by that aura, the bloodline grade is not low, which explains the weight of the pressure it throws at us. The group reads it the same way I do, which is that this time we may be in real trouble. Every creature that genuinely earns the word dragon is a mythical level being. This one has a splash of the blood at most, and a splash is already doing all of that. Cheonga frowns and asks how a proxy creature in an orange-level world ends up carrying true dragon blood. She asks whether a world capable of nurturing dragon-blooded creatures should be capped at orange at all. I do not think that is what happened here. An orange-level world cannot give birth to a true dragon-type creature on its own. What is far more likely is that a true dragon passed through this place once and left tissue behind, a scale or something like it. The world used that to raise this turtle. The concentration of dragon blood in it will not be high, which makes the fight tricky rather than impossible. Baekhyun's eyes light up at that, and he immediately starts talking about money. Dragon-type creatures are treasure from head to tail. Even a trace of dragon race bloodline multiplies the value of every material several times over. He declares we are about to get rich. He is not wrong about the value. Since the Great Vortex event ended, the world will of the Dark World has not run another event. Even before that, it had stopped handing out equipment and items directly. These days, an ability user who wants equipment, items, or medicine has exactly 2 roads open. One road is the stockpile the Dark World handed out in earlier days. A few pieces are genuinely fine. The vast majority are low quality, long since outgrown and phased out as everyone's realm climbed. The other road is making things yourself out of raw materials, whether that means equipment, medicine, or anything else. Some of the humans who came to the Dark World arrived with real technical skill and have kept improving it. 09 is one of those. Others learned to craft off a Dark World skill book and upgraded it until they could produce higher quality goods. That split runs through the whole Dark World, with combat-type ability users on one side and life-type on the other. Nearly every chief is combat-type, since only a fighter claws a region into their own hands. Each of them keeps both kinds underneath. Baekhyun already has a specific plan for the hide. The Bak family keeps a leather craftsman of extremely high level who has been stuck for want of high-quality material to practice on. A unicorn dragon turtle hide might carry him through to legendary rank in one push. It would produce legendary rank equipment along the way. He watches the thing come at us with no fear anywhere in his face, only appetite. 09 looks at it just as hungrily. In a low voice she says the shell should be useful for developing new materials to improve the strength and precision of mechas and other machinery. Will is excited too. He has heard that bathing in dragon blood does enormous things for physical fitness. He thinks even a trace of dragon race bloodline should push his bloodlust ability through another realm. I want something out of it as well, and mine is the cheapest thing on the list to describe. Set aside the hide and the shell and the blood, because the genes in that body alone are temptation enough for me. If I can extract dragon genes and fuse them into my ants, I would very much like to see what comes out the other side. So I tell everyone not to celebrate early, since the materials still have to be taken with our own hands. The whole group visibly lights up at that. Baekhyun laughs and asks what we are waiting for. Then he immediately adds a caveat, which is that this big fellow is so large his attacks may amount to scratching an itch. He intends to leave the main force role to me and focus on support instead. He is right about the arithmetic. That bulk gives the turtle absurd vitality. Baekhyun's attack power is high, and even if the thing lay flat and let him work it would be extremely hard to kill. Breaking a defense like that needs something large enough to meet it on its own terms. Even 09's mecha, over 100 meters tall, can only barely scratch through against a 500-meter behemoth. Baekhyun's real value was never raw damage anyway, since buffs and debuffs are his specialty, so I lay out the plan. I will split the ants into 2 groups and put 3 gigantified tunneling ants on the turtle's front to hold it in place. Then I look for weak points and send the smaller ants through them one by one. They get inside the body and wreck it from within. Will offers several hunting-type skills that weaken the unicorn dragon turtle's combat status. He warns that once he spends them he has no other status abilities left. He means to open with those and then follow the ant army in. 09 says her mecha is relatively small and flexible enough to make up for it. She will work alongside my tunneling ants to hold the front. Chianga, without little green here, has no way to meet the dragon turtle head-on, so she takes support in logistics. She promises to pull anyone injured out of the battlefield with her vitality vines. We have fought together often enough that the arrangements take almost no time at all. Then the unicorn dragon turtle closes to within 40 kilometers and starts gathering energy exactly as before. It is winding up that long-range water element arrow rain. Water element pours in so thickly that the sky darkens and black clouds blot out the sun. Far behind us, Baekhyun and the other 2 are watching through a water mirror. Their hearts drop at the sight of the skill that chased them across a continent being loaded again. Then they see something considerably more shocking, which is the 5 of us declining to retreat and charging straight into it. Heo Minho's eyes go wide and he asks whether we have lost our minds. One hit of that left them severely injured, and we are running toward it. To be fair to them, they were hurt that badly partly because they were close and unprepared. A full power skill caught them at point-blank distance. That does not change the intensity, which sits far above what legendary upper-tier creatures usually put out. Bakhua is extremely nervous inside and shows very little of it. She says that people who dare to charge must have ample confidence behind them. They will go in and pull us out the moment the situation turns unfavorable. For now, she says, we do not need them, so they should wait quietly. Lee Mook nods along. The three of them use the recovery items we handed over and keep their eyes on the mirror. Out at the front, none of us unleashes anything at all. We pile onto Baekhyun's magic carpet and drive straight at the unicorn dragon turtle. The pressure of the brewing skill builds against our faces. The carpet runs like lightning, fast enough to leave an afterimage behind it. I ask him for more and whether we can reach the turtle before it fires. He is drenched in sweat and says he is at maximum already and does not think we will make it in time. By now, the energy at the turtle's mouth is extremely dense, and its head has reached its highest point. From our experience pulling Baekhyun out, we have 2 or 3 seconds before the arrow rain flies. I tell him to switch to the second plan and prepare to dodge, and he says I call the shots. Exhausted as he is, he stays loose, whistles once, and fixes his whole attention on the turtle to watch what it does next. The water elements keep thickening until dark clouds gather overhead, as though rain is about to fall. The turtle has never triggered a phenomenon like that in any previous cast. I tell him to be careful because something is wrong. He nods slightly with no breath left to answer, his concentration pushed to its limit. Out on the distant hillside, the three of them are watching with sweat running off their noses and temples. They are too tense to wipe their faces. Baekhyun catches the difference first. She is unusually sensitive to water element energy and by now very familiar with this creature. She says this attack is far stronger than the one that hit them. If theirs was intensity 1, she says, this one is at least a 5. The energy inside is not even the same category. She calls out that we are in danger, and everything is moving too fast for the warning to reach anyone. The raised net comes down in one hard swing. An extremely thick dark blue water pillar leaves the mouth like a tsunami aimed at the 5 of us. I call it, and Baekhyun hauls the carpet up into a bend of nearly 90 degrees and shoots straight for the sky. We scrape past the edge of the pillar close enough to count as touching it, and come out clean on the far side. The pillar runs on for several kilometers past our tail. Then it converts into countless arrows and shreds the environment for dozens of miles around. Hyo Minho breaks into a cold sweat watching that and cheers out loud, calling the evasion ingenious. He explains the trick to the other two as much as to himself. The water element arrow rain begins as one massive water pillar far more powerful than the arrow form. It only disperses into that overwhelming, unavoidable rain after 10 or 20 kilometers of travel. The pillar hits far harder and covers a tiny fraction of the area. Baekhyun closed the distance and dodged it while it was still a pillar. Lee Mook nods and points out how difficult that actually is to execute. The pillar is over 10 meters in diameter and spreads wider than an average waterfall. It leaves the mouth at peak kinetic energy and travels much faster than the arrow rain. It carries the entire energy of the attack. They took a few arrows and came away merely injured, Lee Mook says. Taking that pillar head-on would have used up 10 lives each. A man only dares a maneuver that extreme with absolute confidence in his own speed. He admits, moved, that he feels somewhat small next to it. Baekhyun exhales a long breath, keeps her eyes serious on the mirror, and lets herself relax by a fraction. At the center of the battlefield, I tell Baekhyun it was well done and give him a thumbs up. Then I call for closing the distance and starting the operation. The unicorn dragon turtle looks like a pure meat shield, thick-skinned and slow. The water element arrow rain is what actually makes it a problem, with enormous range and enormous damage behind it. Had we deployed our methods early and fought our way in from range, we would have paid heavily before ever reaching it. My aunts would have paid most of all, since a densely packed army is exactly what arrow rain is designed for. That is why we ran the dangerous version instead. Baekhyun carries everyone in close. We fight at knife range, and the skill dies unused. It needs both charging time and distance to function. Strip the range off a walking fortress and it becomes a very large animal in a very small room. Baekhyun announces that it is time to get to work. A light array unfolds behind him, throwing halos of several colors onto the unicorn dragon turtle and onto our group respectively. I slap the spirit-nurturing jar and the ant army pours out and comes down on the turtle from the air. 3 earthen yellow giants among them begin swelling the instant they land. Those 3 are the tunneling ants carrying the gigantification gene, which lets them take a giant form and raises their strength substantially. The gene is not free though, and the unicorn dragon turtle is the proof of it. Enormous size means enormous energy consumption, which is exactly why creatures like that spend most of their lives dormant. By simple conservation, an enlarged tunneling ant burns dozens of times what a regular tunneling ant of the same level burns. I cannot currently afford that at any scale. 3 is what I raised, and 3 is entirely sufficient. I tell them to enlarge and hold it down. They are only a few dozen meters each at the moment. Then yellow light floods over their bodies and they inflate like balloons. Each one swells in seconds until it runs 450 meters long. They fill the open ground around the unicorn dragon turtle and wedge it firmly in the middle. It stretches its neck and roars at the squeeze, then throws its weight forward to ram its way clear. The three hold from three separate directions in a tripod stance. Its power and its realm are both well above theirs. A single tunneling ant standing alone would have been sent flying instantly. Three of them braced and properly positioned give up one small step and then pin it so completely it cannot move an inch. Baekhyun cheers at the sight of the arrogant thing held still. A golden light array lights up behind him and lays attribute boosts over all three giants. I tell him not to celebrate early. The bigger those three inflate, the faster they burn, and the extreme size state cannot be held for long. In 10 minutes, the tunneling ants will run dry and their forms will shrink back on their own. After that, nobody on our side can restrain this fellow head-on. We finish the fight inside 10 minutes, or we do not finish it at all. He nods, unhappy about it. He asks why my ants are like the giant hero in a children's serial who can never stay big for more than a few minutes. Then he decides that since we are on a clock, he will bring out some of his own hidden goods. His light array shifts, and a lamp with 9 colored petals floats out of it. It is a 9 lotus treasure lamp, and none of us has ever seen him use it. He raises it looking thoroughly pleased with himself and explains it is a legendary rank item he snagged off his family. The usage conditions are strict enough that he is currently the only person at home who can activate it at all. That is the only reason he was allowed to keep it. Cheonga asks what it actually does. 7 colored light starts coming off the lamp as Baekhyun answers that it amplifies. It boosts every attribute of a target by 50%, or weakens every attribute by 50%, for 3 minutes. Only one of the two effects can be chosen per use, and the cooldown afterward is punishing. 3 minutes is short, and a swing of that size can decide an entire battle. The surprise shows on all of us. Not long after the lamp comes out, the pinned unicorn dragon turtle seems to feel its aura. Something like apprehension appears in those enormous eyes. It lets out a furious roar. Then it pulls all 4 limbs and its neck fully inside its shell. Baekhyun is left standing there flustered, holding a legendary rank item with nothing to point it at. He demands to know how a creature carrying dragon blood turns into a frightened turtle before the fight properly starts. I frown, because that is not cowardice but intelligence. This thing has extremely high intelligence and it sensed a threat. The retreat into the shell is a genuine problem for us. Ordinary turtle people shells are already absurdly hard, with defense far beyond creatures of the same level. This one is the proxy creature of an entire world with a trace of Dragon Clan bloodline in it. Its shell will be worse than absurd. Will steps up and volunteers to test it. I tell him to be careful, because a creature like this is not actually cowardly and is very likely holding something in reserve. He says he will be, takes a deep breath, and lifts the bloodthirsty battle axe in his hand. Red blood aura rises off his body and thickens for 10 seconds until it looks almost tangible. Then he shouts, charges, and leaps astonishingly high. He swings both axes back over his shoulders in the posture of a man splitting a mountain. He brings them down on what genuinely does look like one. He is not a reckless brute about the target. He avoids the shell entirely and aims for the openings where the limbs and head withdrew. Those areas appear to be covered only by a layer of fleshy keratinous tissue rather than proper armor. The axes land, sparks spray everywhere, and a sharp clang of metal rings out across the field. Will comes off that turtle faster than he went in, spits a mouthful of blood, and goes noticeably pale. Both giant axes are still clutched tight in his hands. His state startles all of us. We had anticipated the attack would not go smoothly, and we never expected it to be this one-sided. The unicorn dragon turtle did not attack at all. Simply defending was enough to throw a man of Will's caliber back through the air bleeding. Baekhyun's carpet shoots out and catches him mid-flight. Before we can even check on his condition, a buzzing sound comes off the turtle, and every head turns toward it. Its shell is vibrating and rotating, picking up speed as we watch. An extremely dense aura of water element is gathering inside it. The water elements finish converging, and the unicorn dragon turtle pulls its limbs and its head back inside the openings of its shell. Then it starts firing high-pressure jets out of those same openings while it spins. The jets behave like blades, and the blades sweep everything inside their reach. 3 tunneling ants that had the thing boxed in go flying in a single move, and every scrap of control we bought evaporates with them. It was never fleeing earlier. It was winding up. It spins like a top with a ring of blades welded around it. chewing through the forest without any care for where the pieces land. Inside a few dozen kilometers, the ground is scraped bare, which tells me all I need to know about its attack power. My tunneling ants survive the only way they know how, which is straight down, burrowing under before the blades find them. A beat slower and one pass would have killed them outright. In this state, the turtle is not only putting out absurd damage but is also close to untouchable. Will hit it earlier with everything he had, left no mark at all, and coughed blood from his own recoil. So we do the sensible thing and get out from under it. Baekhyun lifts us into the air on the magic carpet and we watch the thing rage below. Will has been patched up by all of us and his own recovery has done the rest, so he looks nearly whole again. I ask him what happened, how he ended up thrown that far, whether he clipped a spot where the shell runs thickest. He shakes his head and says he aimed deliberately for the flank, where no shell covers it. The creature is 500 meters long. The uncovered stretches are enormous, and there was no possible way to miss. What he felt on contact was a recoil so complete it was like burying his own axe in his own chest. He is certain the shell is not the whole of its defense, that it is running a defensive skill. Covering the bare spots while throwing the attacker's own force back at him is a nasty combination, and every face on the carpet tightens when he says it. I tell them the strike still bought us information. If the defense really is that seamless, the plan we put together a few minutes ago is going to be very hard to run. I had assumed the parts outside the shell would be softer, that my ants could break one point and gut it from inside. That is not happening. Nobody says anything for a while, because if we cannot break the defense, there is no point discussing how to kill it. A creature that punishes you for hitting it has already read your whole strategy before you finished writing it. I glance down at the thing, still spinning, and say the only real question is how we breach that defense. Nothing lands while it is in its spinning top state, but a skill like that has to burn energy at a frightening rate, so it cannot hold forever. When it stops, we surround it again and go back to work. Baekhyun points out, unhappily, that even outside this state its defense will still be enormous, and asks whether we can honestly break it. I do not blame him. Anything that retreats into its shell at the slightest provocation and then attacks in every direction would make anybody feel useless. I tell him there is no other way, and we do our best. He is to stop buffing us and put the 9 Lotus treasure lamps straight onto the turtle instead. Combined with Will's skill, that should strip at least 60% of its defense, and 60% probably will not be enough against a body like that. We need something stacked on top. I ask 09 and Xianga whether either has a method, because weakening enemies has never been my strength. Both fall into thought and neither answers right away. So I tell them it is fine if they have nothing. I want the turtle's materials badly, but this is only an orange-level world, and if there is no way through, we crush the beacon and leave. Fighting something like this to the death is not a trade I will make. Baekhyun curses and complains that slinking off would be humiliating, and I tell him humiliation is cheaper than a funeral. He sighs and admits it, mutters that sometimes you push and sometimes you back off, and decides the turtle's shell is simply tough enough to make the world unfair. Below us, the spin is finally slowing. Saying it and meaning it were two different things. I had come this far, and everything in me resisted walking away with nothing. The stronger the turtle proved, the more it argued that the source of its dragon lineage was something enormous. If I could pull genes out of it, my ants would take a real leap. That mattered more than it sounds. I can push my own realm forward on breakthroughs and insight, but my ants need two things to cross a rank: energy and potential. Without potential, they stall no matter how much energy I pour in. Pure dragon genes are the best potential material in existence. Giving up would have been a waste, and even making the thing bleed once would have beaten going home empty. Chiunga thinks about it for a while and then shakes her head, apologizing. She has run through a lot of options and none of them do anything, since her plant abilities are meaningless against a creature built like that. I understand completely. Without a special skill or item, almost nobody has a good answer to a wall like that. If she has nothing, then 09, whose whole discipline is machinery, almost certainly has nothing either. So I tell everyone the risk has run far past the reward, and we should prepare to pull out. Reason wins over greed, barely. 09 has been standing off to the side this whole time, watching me sigh. She hesitates, something settles behind her eyes, and she says she has a method we might try. A method? I had already talked myself into walking away, because the turtle looked like it had no weakness and the risk was absurd next to the payout. Hope changes that arithmetic instantly. 09 is the most meticulous person I know, and when she says there is a way, so my mood lifts before she explains anything. Still, I ask whether the method is dangerous. If she had this in her pocket from the start, she would have offered it an hour ago. and the fact that she waited tells me something is off. Her expression does not change at all. She says there is no risk. It is a new ability she unlocked when she advanced to legendary rank, and she kept quiet because she has never used it and could not promise the effect. Now that there is no better option, she thinks it is worth testing. I stare at her for a few seconds and get nothing back but that same calm face. I give in, tell her to go ahead carefully, and promise we retreat the instant it fails. She agrees, says nothing else, and climbs back into the mecha. The star dome lifts and heads straight for the turtle, which has almost stopped spinning. Everybody shouts at her to be careful, because she is making no preparations and Will's flight through the trees is still fresh. Inside the cockpit, she is staring at the creature, and her gaze has gone somewhere deep. She hesitates, presses her right hand flat to her heart, lets out a soft breath, and her eyes harden on a decision she does not intend to explain. She says quietly that her advance to legendary rank carried the mechanical heart up with her, and that it is time to test the third stage. She closes her eyes, and silver starlight bleeds out of her, faint at first, then filling the cockpit. It does not stop there. It accelerates outward with the cockpit at its center and floods the whole machine, and in a little over 10 seconds the entire frame is burning silver. None of us has seen this before, or knows what to call it. What comes off the mecha is not raw pressure, but a faint, patient weight, and it makes the back of my neck prickle. Below us, the turtle finishes scraping its circle clean and stops. It pushes its four limbs and head back out of the shell, sees the glowing machine, and nearly pulls back inside. Even a creature like that feels something coming off 09 that it cannot name. It does not retreat though. It is the proxy creature of this world, and it carries a powerful dragon bloodline, and pride will not let it run twice. The mecha is only a hint of weight, nothing it cannot bear, but it does not underestimate the machine either, because creatures at that level never ignore their instincts. It lowers its body and aims the black spiral-patterned horn on its head at the star dome. Water element energy gathers there, thicker and heavier than anything it has thrown so far. My sentry ant reads the buildup and reports that the target is releasing a key skill, and that the intensity measures 5 times a standard legendary upper-tier attack. 5 times knocks the air out of me. Between 2 major ranks at the low end, the gap runs 1 to 3 times, and it only widens to 10 times once you reach Diamond and Legendary. Inside Legendary itself, lower tier to middle or middle to upper, the gap is 3 times at most, which means that horn is carrying close to 2 extra minor realms of force. I had already guessed the horn was tied to its finishing move, and thought I was prepared. I was not prepared for that number. For a moment I wonder whether the attack has crossed into mythical level. Then I talk myself down. A newly broken through lower legendary is 10 times in upper diamond. By every pattern I have seen, the gap between mythical and legendary has to be far more than 10 times, probably 20 or 50. This is still legendary. It is legendary with the volume turned all the way up. The fight is 1 breath from starting, and I have nothing clever, so I put the 3 giant tunneling ants to work in secret. That attack cannot be allowed to reach 09. Her mecha looks impressive in that silver state, but what it gives off is strange and quiet rather than heavy, and next to the horn it barely registers. The energy on the horn crests toward its limit. Right at the top of it, the turtle's footing goes, and the ground simply ceases to exist. The soil beneath its feet vanishes into an enormous pit, black all the way down and apparently bottomless, exactly where my 3 tunneling ants have been working. A creature weighing hundreds of thousands of tons has nothing to stand on, and it drops. Baekhyun shouts his approval, and the rest of us breathe out and smile. The pit is deep, because my diggers had a long time to work, but no fall was going to hurt something armored like that. Hurting it was not the point. Losing its footing, losing its aim, and wasting a 5 times attack into empty dirt was the point. Baekhyun laughs and calls it brilliant, saying we should bury the old turtle and see how it manages a finishing move from the bottom of a hole. The smile is still on his face when the sound of tearing air comes up out of the pit. A horn more than a dozen meters long punches through the soil and comes out of the ground as though nothing had been in its way. Then it turns in midair and flies at 09, aimed dead at the cockpit. It is still carrying 5 times a legendary upper tier, and both its speed and its output are climbing as it goes. If that lands, she dies. We are caught flat, all of us, and there is no version of the next second where anybody reaches her in time. Somebody shouts her name, and somebody else shouts a warning, and neither accomplishes anything. The horn keeps accelerating on its cushion of water element energy, straight at the cockpit. This skill does not care about line of sight or firing angle, since it locks onto a life aura and follows it, which means the pit I dug to break its vision was worth nothing. 09 holds the mecha where it was, floating quietly, silver light rolling off the hull, apparently unaware that anything is coming. Will and I and the rest are somewhere between frantic and furious and completely useless. Staring harder does not slow time down. The horn arrives, and I catch myself closing my eyes. At the last possible instant, the star dome moves. 100 meters of machine shifts with a lightness that makes no sense, tilting to one side by a few degrees. The horn, 10 meters of it, shaped like a spear scaled up 100 times, shaves past the hull and keeps going. The only contact is the air it drags, which polishes the armor as it passes. Nothing else touches her at all. When we can breathe again, the relief lasts a second before the questions start. She has flown that mecha beside us a long time, and all of us know exactly what it can do. Triple its performance, and it still could not have dodged that. Yet nothing about it has changed except the glow, and it just slipped a tracking attack like a duelist reading a strike before it lands. Baekhyun is delighted, saying she has been sitting on that ability the whole time, and complaining that our team's ranking is about to slide another place. I am not delighted. I tell them the turtle's attack is not that simple, that the show is over, and that we are not leaving her to fight alone. Whatever state she is in cannot last, so everything we have goes in now. And I am right, because the horn defies every rule of momentum, turns a full half circle in open air, and comes back at her. It tracks without limit. It does not stop until it hits. Her state is agile enough that she keeps slipping it, always at the last moment, always with the smallest movement she can afford. It looks effortless. It is not, and all of us know it, so we move. Will goes first, blood mist boiling off his shoulders, both giant axes up, launching into the horn's path and hacking down before it reaches her. The impact throws him backwards, and the horn does not waver off its heading. Even at full power, he is outclassed. He is not wasting his time, though. The horn had been building speed the whole flight, and his strike bleeds a large share of that kinetic energy away. Seeing it work, Cheonga, Baekhyun and I start hammering it together, all of us aiming at nothing but its velocity. 09's drain drops off immediately. What frustrates me is that 4 of us can shave the speed and none of us can knock it out of the air. So we settle into a stalemate. The same thought arrives in all of us at once, which is that none of this goes anywhere unless we hit the body. Then the bottom of the bottomless pit erupts. A column of water blasts out with the turtle at the top, and the thing rides its own fountain back into the open. The instant it clears the ground, the horn behaves like something handed it a buff. Every bit of speed we took away comes back, and then more, until it is moving twice as fast as before. 09's dodges stop looking easy. I shout at Baekhyun to go now. He does not hesitate. The 9 lotus treasure lamp flares, and a phantom lotus of 9 colors settles over the turtle before it has finished landing. Its aura drops by half on the spot. That is what the lamp does, cutting every attribute of the target by 50%. Simple and brutal, and, because the lamp's rank is high enough, not discounted by a single point, I call out praise and send the clear ants in. Hundreds of legendary rank clear ants sweep forward together and pour spiritual interference into the creature. The turtle is enormous, with vitality and physical strength to match, but its spiritual power never scaled with its body. Against more than 100 legendary rank mines at once, it suffers badly. It hits the ground hard right after clearing the pit and lets out a long wail that is more pain than rage. Then black thorny vines 2 or 3 meters thick come out of the earth and wrap it layer after layer. That is Cheongha, and forcing that much wood element energy out at once costs her, since her face goes pale and her brow stays knotted. A red ring of light drops over the turtle's head, and its aura falls another step. That is Will's hunting skill, which ignores the target's level and takes 20% off its physical stats. Stacked together, the debuffs strip the creature down to something barely recognizable, and it clearly never expected to surface into a wall of curses. The horn's flight speed bottoms out with it, and the star dome, still shimmering, turns and runs at the turtle in complete silence, with the horn chasing behind and losing ground the whole way. The mecha carries an alloy greatsword. At 1,000 meters out, starlight flashes and the machine is gone. Something tears through the air like silk splitting along a seam. Starlight gathers again, and the star dome stands past the turtle with its back to the creature, sword in hand, down on one knee. The turtle, which had been roaring without pause, goes silent and still. Then its head comes off the neck along one clean line and falls. The horn drops out of the sky with its power gone, and blood pumps from the stump in a pillar. The world informs me that the proxy creature has been killed, and the world core is condensing. 09 took it down in one motion. Baekhyun rubs his eyes as though the picture might change. The unicorn dragon turtle had been bouncing around the landscape and shrugging off everything we owned. It was deleted in a single stroke by a machine that had spent the entire fight running from a horn. The Star Dome never showed 1 point of offensive power until that instant. Nobody had her read as an assassin in the dark, waiting for the one moment worth a certain kill blow. Far off, Baikwa and her 2 companions are just as stunned. When the turtle erupted earlier, the 3 of them stood there with nothing to say. Even at that range, its aura made breathing difficult, and they cannot imagine what it felt like standing in front of it. Hyo Minho says that if they had faced it head-on, they would have died before making a move, and asks how anyone kills it inside a few minutes. Both sides are legendary rank, and he does not understand how the gap can be that wide, so he settles on calling the 4 of them freaks. Lee Mook nods along with all of it. Baikwa is shocked as well, but mostly she is relieved. However it happened, the stage is cleared, and the strength on display proves the team was not boasting. She says plainly that it was their own side that was arrogant, and both men lower their heads. Zhou Kang shouted loudest, but they stood behind him, which makes it their embarrassment too. Measured against what they just watched, their duel challenge reads like a child squaring up to a grown man. If Zhang Yun's group had wanted to take offense, dealing with the 3 of them would have been no harder than swatting flies. She tells them to stop standing there dazed. Baekhyun's team having that kind of strength is good news for their side, since it means clearing a dozen orange-level worlds fast and without real risk. She sets off toward the 4 in the distance to apologize, thank them, and start arranging the trip home. The 2 men exchange a glance, nod, and follow her. The silver starlight fades off the mecha and leaves the cold white lines of the hull showing again. After all of that, there is not a scratch on it anywhere, which makes the kill flawless in a way I find slightly unnerving. The cockpit opens, and 09 drops out in her silver-white combat suit, riding her flight pack down to the ground. Baekhyun reaches her first, loudly informing her that she was far too fierce and that the strike was the best thing he has seen. Her face is very pale, and she only nods. Whatever she did took a great deal out of her even though nothing touched her. She pauses before answering, then says in that flat, cold voice that it was nothing. With several debuffs stacked on the target, and the computing power her machine god state gives her, she could locate its weak point precisely. Killing it fell entirely inside what she had already calculated. She has mentioned the name machine god before, but that was the first time she has used it, and I had no idea what it did. It multiplies her calculation capacity until she can slip a tracking attack by a hair and solve a defense we could not scratch. She found the seam and put a sword through it once. Watching her sway on her feet, I step in and take her weight before she goes down. Baikwa's group flies in right then. Lee Mook and Hyo Minho glance at each other and come forward to apologize. They admit they failed to recognize what they were standing in front of, and thank us for saving them from the monster. Will and I trade a look and I shake my head, smiling, and tell them it was part of the commission. Hyo Minho calls me generous and says he is ashamed, using his family name while he does it, and the surname stops me cold. I ask whether his surname is really Hyo. He confirms it a little awkwardly and gives his full name as Hyo Minho of the Hyo family. Hyo Minho, of the Hyo family. The name Hyo Singyil comes up behind it before I can stop it, and something in my chest goes still. I glance at Baekhyun, then ask, more heavily than I intend, what his relationship to the man is. He seems surprised I know the name, and answers that by blood he would call him his younger cousin. A paternal cousin means the son of his father's own brother, which is about as close as blood gets. So Hyo Singyel was family to him in the way that matters most to the old houses, and the older the house, the more weight it puts on that. I killed Hyo Singyel. He was the heir of the Hyo family, and if this man ever learns who did it, nothing about the rest of this arrangement ends cleanly. I keep my face where it is, and let him talk. Hyo Minho has no idea what is going on behind that face. He explains that they were cousins in name only. Hyo Singyel was the only son of the current clan head, while he is one of his father's many illegitimate sons, with talent and no standing. The gap between them in identity and status was enormous, and if Hyo Singyel had not suddenly gone out of contact, this mission would never have come to him. Then he asks whether I happen to know his cousin. I know him about as well as 2 people can while trying to kill each other. Baekhyun is signaling me with his eyes, so I give Hyo Minho a look he cannot read and say only that I have heard the name from Baekhyun. Then I change the subject, since everyone here is carrying real physical and mental damage and needs time to recover. I propose we meet again in 3 days, and take the next different world. Tired faces nod all around, and one of them says a monster like that was in nobody's plan. The agreement is made, 3 days, with their side happy to lean on ours again. We use the world core to return to the dark world together. Hyo Minho's trio very sensibly never raises the question of who owns that core, which belongs to the 4 of us, by default. Raising it would not have changed a single thing. We do not scatter to rest. The 5 of us go straight to my black island and sit down. The first thing I ask is why Baekhyun invited the Hyo family at all, given what he knows about Hyo Sing-yeol and me. He scratches the back of his head and admits it awkwardly. Only the 5 of us know what happened to Hyo Sing-yeol, and the Hyo family knows nothing. His own clan has a working relationship with them, and since he did not go through his clan, he had no clean way to keep them out. Which is fair. Blocking them openly would have been the same as confessing. He apologizes for not warning me in advance, then adds something more useful. The Hyo family is split internally, and the current clan head's line and Hyo Minho's line are at odds, which anyone could have guessed from the way the man described himself. I nod and tell him to leave the Hyo family alone for now, and that if they ever get an idea about us, we take the opening and absorb them. The truth is they are not a threat worth the airtime, since with their strength they do not even count as a first-tier power inside the United Alliance. The alliance itself is bloated and full of factions with their own agendas, and we are not afraid of it. One small family is not going to keep me awake. What we took out of that world is a different matter. I pull a fist-sized crystal from my storage ring, orange all through with the faintest hint of yellow, and every eye in the room goes to it. This is the world core. Baekhyun says with feeling that this little thing was not easy to earn, and nobody argues, because without 09's outburst we would be sitting here with nothing. Which brings me back to her. I ask her directly whether her body is really all right, and tell her to speak up the moment anything feels wrong. There are 5 of us here and plenty of ways to solve a problem, so she should not sit on it. Her face is still pale, which makes her fair skin look translucent, and with all that silver-white hair she looks like a porcelain doll left out in the weather. She shakes her head gently and says she is fine, and that if she needs help she will not force herself. I hold her gaze a while longer, get the same calm nothing back, and choose to believe her. Then I lay out where we stand. We took this commission for world clear counts and a path into the Black Tower, and we walked out with the corpse of a creature carrying high-level dragon bloodline. Baekhyun agrees that the unicorn dragon turtle is worth more than an entire world's resources could buy, and calls us lucky to have met the big fellow at all. Luck is the right word only because we were strong enough to survive it. For almost anybody else, that stroke of luck is a slower way of dying. I tell everyone we should split the haul before we scatter, and since 09 did the killing, she picks first. Nobody objects, because without her it is an open question whether the turtle dies at all, and even then the price would have been ugly. She does not pretend to be modest either. She says the shell carries a natural energy deflection and refraction field, the single horn and armor-piercing field, and those 2 are the only things she wants. Those 2 happen to be the most valuable materials on the body, which means she reached straight past every polite option and took the best of it. Nobody minds. We lost nobody. She carried the fight, and the team benefits from whatever she builds anyway. Handing that shell and horn to me instead would waste them completely, and wasting a gift like that is the real crime. So we split the rest by need. Then we divide the water element crystal cores the turtle people dropped, the materials off their bodies, and the stores we emptied out of their tribe, weighted by contribution. That covers nearly everything. We are all standing up to go recuperate when Chianga stops us and says she has one more piece of important intelligence. Everyone has just been handed a pile of resources and everyone is exhausted, so the word intelligence lands badly. We stop anyway and look at her. She nods, smiling, and says it concerns that world, and that it is good news, which somehow makes it worse, since now we are curious and tired at once. She does not draw it out. Little Green found something right after the battle, and Chianga kept quiet about it because outsiders were standing there. Deep under the sea of that orange-level world, there is an extremely dense dragon race aura. It comes from the same source as the turtles, and it is far purer. That takes a second to land, and when it does, we all react the same way. A purer dragon aura means a stronger dragon-type creature, and the turtle alone nearly ended us. If something like that had stepped in while we were fighting, killing the turtle would have been beside the point, and the question would have been whether any of us walked out. The thought of it lying in the dark watching that fight puts cold sweat down my back. Baekhyun wipes his forehead and begs her not to joke. One unicorn dragon turtle in an orange-level world is already excessive, and a stronger dragon on top of it breaks every rule there is. She laughs at his lingering fear and repeats that this is good news. The world is on the verge of a breakthrough, but it genuinely cannot hold a creature stronger than the turtle. And the reason is simple. The dragon is not alive. It has been dead for a stretch of time nobody can even guess at. A dead dragon-type creature, and one far stronger than the turtle. The turtle alone already had everyone feeling the trip had paid for itself. And now there is a second haul under the water that makes the first look modest. The room goes stupid with delight. My own pulse is going, but I hold on to enough sense to notice the shape of it. The corpse's aura shares a source with the turtle's and dwarfs it, which suggests the turtle drew its dragon bloodline from that corpse. Chionga nods and says it is very likely. As a world tree, Little Green is extremely sensitive to powerful auras, and Chionga's explanation for why it never sensed the dragon is that the world will was hiding it deliberately. Killing the proxy creature and taking the world core stripped the world will of its grip, and the aura surfaced the moment it failed. The guess is probably close to the truth. Baekhyun is already rubbing his hands, demanding to know what we are waiting for, and announcing that we are rich. Chionga looks at his money-grubbing face and tells him, without much sympathy, that the corpse will not be easy to collect. He asks, honestly puzzled, what could be difficult about a corpse in a world we have already taken? She explains that by Little Green's reading it lies in the far west under 10,000 meters of sea. That depth brings crushing pressure and undercurrents both, so getting it out will not be simple. That number alone makes everyone frown. At that depth, doing nothing still means more than 5,000 tons pressing in from every direction at once, and no ordinary creature survives it without a body built for the deep. Undercurrents on top of that will not make the hauling friendlier. There is worse, and I say it, because the corpse is a problem before you ever reach it. Even in death, a dragon race creature radiates a dragon might that saps the physical strength of anything with a lesser bloodline. Pure-blooded dragons also run absurd in size, which means absurd in weight. Even if we get down to the seabed, lifting that thing 10,000 meters up to land is a separate impossibility. Everyone is chewing the same list. Baekhyun complains that Chionga called this good news, and that a fat piece of meat sitting where nobody can eat it is not good news but torture. She laughs and tells him to stop whining and start thinking. He is the one with a collection full of items that do strange things, so she asks whether he really has nothing suited to this. I back her and tell everyone to brainstorm properly. If we can raise the corpse of a creature whose bloodline is purer than the turtle's, every one of us takes another enormous step forward. That earns nods, and one by one they start putting what they have on the table. I go first. I have blue water ants. Extremely proficient in water and already at legendary rank, so 10,000 meters of depth is not the obstacle. The problem is that they are small and physically weak. Moving a dragon corpse that might weigh tens of millions of tons would take an enormous number of them, and I have exactly 150. Blue water ants pour everything into water element affinity and skills, which makes them delicate specialists rather than laborers. My black scythe hunting ants are the opposite, all raw physical power. Warriors rather than mages, and they cannot dive at all. One species can carry the weight and drowns. The other swims beautifully and cannot lift anything. Fortunately, I am not solving this alone. Baekhyun offers items that boost strength and skills that do the same, which would push the blue water ants up enough to work with far fewer bodies. His collection is vast, and after a moment of thought he produces something better. He has an anti-water pearl that pushes water out of a 10-meter diameter around itself, and he asks whether I could use it to get some of my big black ants down there. I am delighted enough to slap his shoulder and tell him he really does keep good things. A 10-meter diameter means a sphere with a 5-meter radius, which is not a small pocket of air. The catch is that a legendary ranked black scythe hunting ant runs about 5 meters long. It is not tall or wide in proportion, but that sphere still only holds 3 or 4 comfortably. Pack them in and you could force 7 or 8 inside, but they are not going down to stand still. They are going down to haul, and hauling needs room. So 3 or 4 it is. I ask hopefully whether he has more pearls, and he gives me a wry smile and swears he would hide nothing at a moment like this. There is only the one. 3 or 4 black sides is still nowhere near enough, and I say so. It is not nothing either, since 3 or 4 of them outlift 300 or 400 blue water ants. I ask whether anybody else has an idea, and Will pulls a bottle of bright red potion out of his storage ring. He calls it 100 beast blood, brewed from the fresh blood of 100 fierce beasts. It triples strength for half an hour, then drops the drinker into a weakened state for a full day. I tell him it is excellent. Side effects or not, Tripling the strength of the black sides that ride the pearl down raises our odds of moving that corpse by a serious margin. Cheonga follows with 2 bottles of seeds, 1 blue and 1 red. The red ones add 20% strength for an hour with no side effects, weaker but clean. The blue ones raise water element affinity by 30% over the same hour, aimed squarely at my blue water ants. I take both bottles and lay out how it fits together. My blue water ants can manipulate currents, so they can drive water under the corpse and lift with it. 4 black scythes stacked with every strength buff we own pull from the front. The blue water ants lift from behind, and between them they should move something very heavy. If the corpse outweighs what we imagine, none of it works. Cheonga shakes her head gently and says at least we have a chance to try. Her suggestion is to look at the thing first, since it might be lighter than we fear, and if it is, our current setup can bring a priceless dragon corpse straight up. Everybody agrees that information comes first. I take out the world core, orange light flashes, and the 5 of us are standing in the different world we fought in a few hours ago. Cheonga points the way and Baekhyun's carpet carries us west, fast, all the way to the far edge of the world's sea. The water below is deep blue going on black, and the wind keeps it churning, so nothing about it looks calm. Baekhyun says water runs greener as it deepens and then darker, so a sea gone black has to be terrifyingly deep, well past 10,000 meters. I agree, and add the part I do not like. I have no idea whether the corpse sits at 10,000 meters or several thousand below that, and past 10,000 every extra 100 meters adds a punishing amount of pressure. The deeper it lies, the worse this gets. I look down at the water with my jaw set and tap the spirit nurturing jar at my waist. Hundreds of solid blue ants spill out along with 1 huge ant shaped like an airship, 100 blue water ants, and a single hover ant. Blue water ants swim beautifully and cannot fly a meter. The hover ant carries them down to the surface. A second later, the blue ants are gone into the dark. Then we wait. I explain why I sent a full 100 instead of a handful. We have never explored this world's seabed, and there are almost certainly turtle people down there. 100 legendary rank blue water ants that own the water element will not lose to anything a tribe of turtles can field. Everyone nods, because the problem is real. There are a great many turtle people in the depths, and they are wild and untamable now. When the world will dissipated, they did not become my subjects. The rudimentary intelligence they had started to develop went with it, and what is left is closer to beasts. They attack anything that is not kin on sight. If a swarm decides to interfere while my ants are dragging a dragon out of the seabed, that is a genuine disaster. I say, without much conviction, that we should wait for the scouting report, and that perhaps there are no turtle people near the corpse at all. If the situation is not that bad, all this worrying is wasted breath, so we sit with it. The blue water ants drop fast once they are under, riding their own water element abilities, untroubled by the pressure and moving as easily as things born to the sea. I watch the whole descent through the species contract. They do not feel a hint of pressure until 1,000 meters down, and even then it is nothing to them. What arrives at 1,000 meters is worse than pressure. A tribe of 200 or 300 turtle people spots them and closes in from every direction at once. The strongest of that tribe is only diamond rank, so against a squad of legendary rank blue water ants it is not a fight so much as arithmetic. The signal is what bothers me. 1,000 meters, and we have already tripped over a tribe, which raises an ugly question about what is waiting further down. My brow pulls tight without my permission. Baekhyun and the others know I can feel my ants, so they read my face, and he asks what happened. I tell them the thing we least wanted has happened. At 1,000 meters, my ants met about 300 turtle people and killed them all, and we should expect no shortage of harassment from here down. Then I stop mid-sentence, because it is happening again. At 1,300 meters, a second tribe arrives, 500 strong, with a leader at the peak of diamond rank. If this continues, we will run into legendary level turtle people before long, and I say so. Baekhyun calls them persistent, which is generous. His actual point is that they are tolerable now and catastrophic later, when we are in the middle of moving the corpse. He owns items for repelling creatures, but they are powders meant for land, and in water they dilute to nothing. Nobody has a better idea, and the conversation dies. Her voice has been getting colder all evening, cold enough now to carry something like indifference. All of us are looking at the problem instead of at her, and her voice is naturally cold anyway, so not one of us hears anything strange. I ask what the solution is, honestly pleased, because at every critical moment she comes out with something nobody else has. At this point, she is very nearly a walking toolbox with a drawer for every situation. She asks softly whether I remember that she can build a sonar that attracts monsters, and produces from her storage ring an object that looks like a microwave. Baekhyun scratches his head and objects that our problem is getting monsters away from us, so a device that attracts them seems like an escalation. Cheonga slaps him across the back of the head before he can finish, calls him an idiot, and asks who said we were using it on the blue water ants. He clutches his head and performs an injury he did not receive, then his eyes light up as it lands. Cheonga spells it out. We run the sonar on the shore and pull every turtle person in the region to us. A normal sonar might only carry 1 or 2,000 meters, but nothing 09 builds is normal, and she turns to check. 09, half her face behind her hair, gives the smallest nod. She warns quietly that the effect will be exaggerated, that it will probably draw every turtle person in the surrounding water, and that we should be ready for a fight. We look at each other and agree seriously. The plan sets itself. The moment the blue water ants confirm the corpse can be moved, they and the black scythes go down and haul. The rest of us run the sonar, pull the ocean's worth of turtles to the surface, and keep killing for as long as it takes. Not long after, the scouts report in. They have reached roughly 11,000 meters, found the target at the top of an underwater mountain range, measured it at around 300 meters in size, and judged its weight inside our transportable limit. 300 meters is far smaller than the unicorn dragon turtle, which strikes me as strange for something with a purer bloodline. A stroke of luck is a stroke of luck, and I am not going to interrogate it. I pass the news along that the weight is inside range, the plan holds, and we start now. Everyone comes up off the ground looking cheerful. Baekhyun announces that he is starting, and jabs the sonar's button. A faint sound leaks out of the device, so unremarkable to human ears that he squints and asks whether it is even on. The sea answers him. Within several thousand meters, the whole surface starts churning and bursting like something dropped into a boiling pot, and that is turtle people arriving in droves. Thousands of meters in every direction, there is nothing on that water but them, rolling and piling like beads in a hard boil, impossible to count. The number is in the tens of thousands, and it may well be in the hundreds of thousands. Baekhyun turns stiffly and starts to say that this might be a little excessive, and he does not finish, because the crowd below has already found the thing that called them. Necks stretch out all across the water and energy gathers at the end of every one, and all 5 of us know that posture. Water guns. I shout at everyone to move. Tens of thousands of turtle people fire at once at the 5 of us on the carpet. Most of them are only gold or platinum rank, but volume is its own rank, and none of us is willing to eat that head on. We dodge like lunatics in open air and only block when there is no other option. Baekhyun flies the carpet with his whole attention and a bead of sweat on his forehead. He says the sonar worked far too well, and that dodging alone will drain him dry before anything gets accomplished. He is right, and I do the arithmetic out loud. We have probably only pulled the turtle people inside 10,000 meters, and this world holds far more than that. The longer we stand here, the more arrive, and killing every one of these only makes room for the next wave. There is no version of waiting that helps, so we start now. I release every blue water ant I have and put a hover ant on ferry duty, lifting them out of this stretch of sea by air. 4 of my strongest black scythe hunting ants go with them. With the anti-water pearl, those 4 can dive alongside the swimmers, and they are the muscle the whole operation depends on. The instant my ants appear, the turtles switch targets and a storm of water bullets goes up at them. Fortunately, the whole haulage crew boarded the hover ant before it lifted, and hover ants are built to be shot at. The thick-skinned thing absorbs the barrage and carries the main force out of the center of the battlefield. With them clear, I call up everything I own that fights in the air. That is plasma ants first, then healing ants, then the clear ants and their mental attacks. All these days of cultivation have put my legendary rank plasma ant count at 300. Lightning against water-attributed creatures is not a matchup so much as a sentence, and in an environment like this, 1 ant is worth 1,000 soldiers. The catch is that lightning, healing and mental work all cost defense, and dropped into a battlefield this dense they would be shredded quickly. So I do not drop them in bare. I summon a large body of hover ants to screen them, and the formation locks together in an instant. The hover ants take the role they were made for, which is being hit. A legendary rank hover ant has astonishing defense and skin tough enough that water bullets striking those elastic bellies get reflected and refracted straight back out. Whatever damage does stick is patched immediately by the healing ants behind them. As long as the healing ants have energy, that pairing is a fortress nobody out there can open. Behind the wall, the plasma ants do the killing. Their plasma touches the sea surface and nearly doubles on conductivity alone. And since turtle people have poor lightning resistance across the board, a single basic bolt lands closer to triple damage. Against a field of mostly gold and platinum ranked turtles, a scattering of diamond and a very few legendary, my plasma ants never need an expensive skill. They spam the cheapest bolt they own, and every discharge flips a wide patch of turtles onto their backs. 300 at once or 300 small storms walking the water and harvesting it. The clear ants stay behind the shields and pour out mental interference, and they ignore the gold, platinum, and diamond cannon fodder entirely. They only target the legendary ranked turtle people, since those are the only ones capable of hurting us, and I have 500 legendary rank clear ants for a handful of targets. That contest resolves itself. My ants work with a clear division of labor, in a cooperation nobody has to direct, and the sea below them empties steadily. The 5 of us ride the carpet behind the hover ant wall, and add whatever each of us does best. I pull the dragon bone bow and settle into a rhythm, knocking and drawing and loosing dragon energy arrows without pause. Every arrow that lands blows a crater in the crowd and scatters bodies a long way around it. I lean on my ants so heavily that I forget I am also a monster in my own right. It is genuinely pleasant to shoot something myself once in a while. Baekhyun, Will, and Cheonga are all in it with me, working alongside the ant squad. 09 is the only one sitting out, pale and quiet off to the side, resting. That fight against the unicorn dragon turtle looked effortless, and clearly was not, and it has taken more out of her than she intends to admit. The situation does not need her anyway. Between the 4 of us and the swarm, the turtle people are pinned so thoroughly they cannot lift their heads. Apart from the first ugly minute when the water erupted and caught us flat, there is no risk at all. I keep shooting and look down at the endless churn of dying and arriving turtles. I tell everyone to hold about an hour, which should be enough for the blue water ant squad to bring the dragon corpse up. Baekhyun sits cross-legged on the carpet, firing golden lasers down into the water without stopping, and laughs that it is no trouble whatsoever. His point is that we are not working for free, since the materials off this many turtle people are worth a great deal on their own, and that is before anyone mentions the dragon. He says he wants to know what a real dragon looks like. I tell him he will find out shortly, and that until then we hold. Then I offer him a contest, most kills and highest levels, purely to pass the time. He waves me off, insulted, pointing out that 70 to 80% of everything dying down there is dying to my ants, and asking how anyone competes with an army. So I pat the dragon bone war bow and rule the ants out, just the 2 of us, and ask whether he is in. His eyes light up. He bounces off the carpet, and he informs me that long-range damage is his profession, and there is no world where he loses. I tell him not to talk before he shoots. We go back to killing turtles and waiting on a corpse, which is boring and thrilling at once depending on which half you look at. The bet fixes the boring half. Both of us throw ourselves into it, and our output climbs sharply, and the newly arriving turtle people stop keeping pace with how fast they die. Will and Cheonga are stuck, since neither fights well at long range with no ground under their feet, and for a while they find no way to contribute. They trade a look, shake their heads, sit down, and leave the 2 of us to it. More than 40 minutes later, the sea around us is dyed red in every direction. Turtle people corpses cover the surface so densely it reads as flat ground made of shells. Baekhyun and I are breathing hard and have stopped shooting, sitting on the carpet to rest. Nothing is coming anymore, not from the surrounding water, and not from further out. And if more arrive later, there will not be enough to interfere with the work below. He asks whether I have found the dragon corpse yet. I drink a stamina recovery potion, reach along the contract to feel where my ants are, and let myself smile. Found, and better than found, because it is already on its way up faster than I expected, and it should break the surface in roughly 10 minutes. Once it is on the water, we are still far from land, but we stop being helpless the way we were on the seabed. A few hover ants working together can carry it out, and with enough of them, there is no question about the job getting done. Baekhyun says we have wanted this day and night, and it has finally come. A pure-blooded dragon is a mythical level creature, and its leftover scraps alone would furnish a whole rack of legendary rank equipment. A complete specimen is something he cannot even finish the sentence about. He wipes the corner of his mouth and stares at the water with his eyes shining. Nobody else says anything, but every face is carrying the same smile. I suggest that while the blue water ants are still working, we clear the spoils off the sea surface, and everyone agrees and starts collecting. Over those few dozen minutes, the total number of turtle people that surfaced was not less than 200,000. Across tens of thousands of meters, the surface is packed with bodies, stacked more than one layer deep in the crowded stretches. Somebody complains that this is far too many and cleaning it up is a chore, and observes that turtles being egg layers would explain the absurd reproduction rate. Somebody else points out that complaining about a chore while picking up free resources is not a serious position. More is better. The stronger their reproduction runs, the better for us. And now that this world belongs to us, it will keep producing water attribute resources indefinitely. We chat our way through the cleanup, and because the volume is too large, we do not do it properly. We load whole turtle people corpses into the hover ants and let our subordinates sort and strip the materials once we are home. 200,000 dead turtles. And the loudest complaint in the air is that picking up free money is tiring. 10 minutes of steady work later, all 200,000 bodies are packed away, and apart from being an unbroken sheet of red, the sea is almost clean. Then the red water surges and 4 black scythe hunting ant heads break the surface. They are wrapped head to foot in thick alloy chains and hauling upward with everything they have. All 4 are trembling at the edge of exhaustion, straining so hard it is uncomfortable to watch. Even giving everything they own, they cannot quite drag the thing on the other end out of the seabed. We are delighted to see them, and hurry over. I tell everyone to lend a hand and get the big fellow underneath into daylight so we can see its face, and I get an enthusiastic answer. Will and the others pitch in with whatever they have, some putting their own hands on the chains, some summoning plants with items. All of it adds to what the 4 black scythes are already giving. Those 4 went down under the anti-water pearl, and they have earned the help. With fresh strength on the line, the chain starts coming in quickly. Once enough chain is out of the water, we lash it to 10 hover ants and let them take the weight, and a gargantuan shape rises out of the sea. 300 meters long, wings folded along its back, a sharp horn on its head, a tail dozens of meters by itself, teeth and claws made for tearing, and scales of deep blue over all of it. This is the blue dragon that fell in this weak little world for reasons nobody alive can name. The moment it clears the water, the air stops moving. It feels as though the blood in my body has frozen where it stands, and drawing breath turns into work. All of us startle, and it takes deliberate effort to steady our breathing before the sensation lets go. Even then, a faint pressure keeps leaning on us. Someone asks whether this is what the presence of a mythical level creature feels like, a true pure-blooded dragon. It is a corpse. Nobody knows how long ago it fell or how many ages it has slept down there, and it still carries a majesty that puts 5 legendary rank fighters on the back foot. The blue dragon's corpse holds every one of us still, and the presence coming off it presses down like weather. Baihyun says excitedly that the shape looks close to the winged dragons of old Blue Star legend, and wonders whether this world grows the long serpentine kind too. Cheonla smiles and tells him the universe holds so many worlds that living species run past counting, so it is possible. She adds that if such creatures exist, their realm would sit past anything we can picture. Nobody has much to say after that. Below us, the blue water ants have already worked under the body, and with the hover ants pulling from above, they bring it clear of the sea. Out of the water, with no buoyancy to help, 300 meters of dead dragon weighs near 10,000 tons, and the 10 legendary rank hover ants I brought cannot shift it a finger's width. Fortunately, I also brought hundreds of diamond rank hover ants, and the moment they join the haul, the corpse slides forward all at once. It rides the surface like a towed ship, and half an hour later we have it up on land. The blue dragon lies there quietly while we circle it. Finally able to look our fill, Chiunga studies the hide and says softly that the corpse is entirely whole, without one external wound, and wonders what could kill it and leave the outside untouched. I tell her the dragon's realm is plainly mythical level, though I cannot place the tier inside it. Whatever killed it had to be mythical level at minimum. To take a creature like this down that cleanly, the killer would stand at the top even among mythical level beings, and hearing it spelled out puts a catch in everyone's breathing. Reach the mythical level and you can still be swatted flat by something that never breaks a sweat doing it. We have only just stepped into the legendary ranks, so the road ahead runs a long way yet. Saying it aloud stokes the hunger for power in me rather than cooling it. Baekhyun and the others go quiet as well, and I could not guess what any of them are turning over. Then, in the middle of all that heaviness, a cool sensation moves through my sea of consciousness. My realm had felt packed full ever since I broke into the legendary rank and lifted every queen ant with me, and now that fullness loosens by a hair. I am a fingernail's thickness from poking through the paper into the next stage. I come back to myself and take stock of my own body with something close to glee. Standing in front of a dead mythical level dragon has bought me a gain like this. Now I sit one step short of the legendary mid-tier, needing only to go home and meditate for the breakthrough. Every time a queen ant crossed into the legendary rank, it handed me a block of physical attributes, and once all of them had crossed, my strength reached the peak of the legendary low tier. Only my thin comprehension of power kept me from advancing. This insight looks sudden, but it is accumulated pressure finding a crack. I want to sit down immediately, and the only thing holding me is a whole mythical level dragon still waiting to be divided. Baekhyun, meanwhile, runs his hands up and down the scales, eyes shining gold, wearing an expression that has left fanaticism behind and arrived somewhere frankly indecent. He laughs and says he never expected a complete corpse, and that a whole dragon is worth several times a damaged one. He admits he had assumed the unicorn dragon turtle picked up its bloodline by eating part of a carcass, and that clearly was not it. He is right about the value. A whole body stays sealed, so after however many centuries of death it still locks its energy in. Break it open and the years drain that energy away, leaving every harvested material heavily discounted. Cheonga asks whether any of us have heard of the dragon race's companion species. Wherever dragons settle, she says, other creatures gather and are willing to live as dragon servants. Those creatures soak in the dragon's aura for long stretches until Dragon Chi remakes their bodies and hands them a portion of the bloodline. Even a fallen dragon keeps that property as long as its body stays whole, since the intact form holds the aura in place. The unicorn dragon turtle had been cultivating right beside this corpse, drinking that aura in year after year, and that is where its bloodline came from. Baekhyun's eyes light up and he asks whether that makes us rich, whether we could park a herd of creatures beside the corpse and farm dragon blood creatures forever. Chona shakes her head and tells him to keep dreaming. Transforming a bloodline on Dragon Chi alone is slow by nature, and a dead dragon carries less than a tenth of the Dragon Chi it had in life, so the time cost becomes absurd. If he invests decades, she says, or a full century, he should manage a batch. Baekhyun drops the idea on the spot. He would be an old man by then, and it is better to use a thing early and enjoy it early, and raising his own strength is the honest road. Once he is strong enough, he will catch living dragons whenever he likes, so why sit around studying a corpse? I tell them we came through this world's fighting, and then fought a long time on top of it, so we should divide the dragon fast and go home to rest. Nobody argues, and we split it by what each of us can actually use. The scales and hide are brutally tough even now, since a mythical level body does not soften merely from being dead for uncounted years. Dead is still dead though, and 4 legendary rank ability users and 1 ant army have a great many methods. We could not have scratched a living blue dragon, and we are not so feeble that its remains can stop us. Before long the partition is done, and we carry our shares away to digest, absorb and sleep. Back on my black island, up in the wizard tower, I turn several storage rings over in my hand and cannot keep the grin off my face. What is packed inside these few small rings would trade for several hundred units of Black Island without trouble. In the division I took the overwhelming bulk of the flesh and blood, along with an assortment of internal organs. The claws, scales and horns went to 09 in the others. Those forge into superb equipment and price out far above meat, but I have no forge and no smithing craft. 09 and Baekhyun and the rest have methods, and the corpse is so enormous that a human-sized suit of gear barely dents the supply. They promised me a finished set once the work is done. Even through the rings I can feel the dragon's flesh and blood surging. A pure-blooded dragon really is treasure from nose to tail. The blood alone can be used for a bath, and a dragon blood bath hauls physical fitness up by a frightening margin. My allotted share is not merely enough for me, it is enough for my 9 great ant queens as well. I message Tak Mungyul and hand 5 of the rings to a sentry ant to carry down to him. The instruction is to pass all 5 to Wang Hyun first, and have him pull the biological genes out for modifying my ants. Tak Mungyul takes delivery and carries them straight on. Those 5 rings hold nearly all the blue dragon materials, plus everything I was allotted from the unicorn dragon turtle earlier. The turtle haul felt like an outstanding harvest at the time, and beside the dragon it looks like scrap. Still, the turtle stood at the top tier of legendary rank creatures, and any ant can fuse only 1 gene from any one type of creature, so I sent the whole lot along too. That leaves me the last ring, filled to the seal with dragon blood. Wang Hyun needs time to extract the dragon race genes, and I intend to spend that time in a bath. I call the ant queens in from their breeding work and tell them I have come into good material and they are coming with me to get stronger. They answer at once and come fast. I take all 9 down to a wide basin in the storage area that looks like a swimming pool. Then I raise the ring, and dragon blood erupts out in a fountain and fills it to the brim. The pool gives off a savage, crushing pressure. The blood churns like boiling stone and does not look like anything a person should enter voluntarily. That does not bother me. It is the blood of a mythical level dragon, and it will remake my body, and a thing with benefits that obvious is never pleasant in the using. I look around at the 9 of them and remark that we are lucky queens do not run to the ridiculous sizes ordinary ants do, since otherwise this pool would not stretch far enough. Then I warn them the process may hurt badly and tell them not to cry out. They answer that they will hold out no matter what. I strip everything off and go in with all 9 at once. Pain like nothing I have language for, a spike driven straight into the marrow. Mythical level dragon blood comes at me like tens of millions of needle points pushing into my limbs, my bones, and every organ I own. The gain is outrageous and the price is set where no human frame was built to absorb it. My spirit is tough by any standard, and I still hear myself howling. The queens take it in perfect calm, since they have no pain nerves to speak of. What they do have is a memory of the instruction I gave 30 seconds earlier, and their expressions turn very strange. Swift shadow, mo-wall, bright mirror, light healing, and vast waves hold the highest emotional intelligence among them. They force their faces flat, turn away from me, and shut their eyes to concentrate very earnestly on the dragon blood. Leisure Cloud and Rock Spirit are slower and more indifferent by temperament, and do not react at all. Thunder and Mars, being lively and short on tact, fail completely. They look right at me and laugh, and one of them points out that I was the one who said crying in pain was not allowed. My face goes hot. I am being mocked by my own subordinates, and I promise the pair of them that I will settle this later. Being vengeful and painfully attached to my own dignity, I lock my teeth together and take the rest without a sound, which is how I discover that the moment I stop venting through my throat, my physical fitness starts climbing more than 10% faster. That is a delightful thing to learn while being stabbed by 10 million needles. Enduring in silence has its own multiplier, so for the sake of absorption efficiency, I decide not to hold the laughter against those 2. Mars and Thunder swim around the pool in complete happiness, unaware that their names have gone into my ledger anyway. Ants crave power and survival at the level of instinct, so a soak that lifts their fitness this fast is the highest enjoyment they know. As each queen feels her body change, her gratitude and respect for me climb another notch. What runs back down the contract is a conviction that following me was correct, since this rate of evolution beats natural growth 1,000 times over. Their strength rising drags mine up at an unreasonable pace, and somewhere in there my aura shifts without my noticing. A thread of legendary mid-tier realm aura comes off me, while I am too busy screaming to notice I have advanced. Time keeps going while the 9 great ant queens and I strip the pool. The blood that had boiled without pause gradually settles, and the dense red thins until it runs clear, as though something inside it has been drunk dry. Early on I fight the pain with everything I have, but as my body takes the blood in, my fitness climbs, my tolerance climbs with it, and the agony falls off sharply. The blood is being diluted just as fast, until it cannot hurt me at all. What is left is sweetness on the far side of the bitterness, warm and comfortable. After so many hours of continuous battle, I fall dead asleep in the dragon blood. The queens did not fight in that war, and are not tired, so none of them drift off. Seeing me asleep, they do not dare move, and they simply stand guard around the rim and wait. I have no idea how long it runs. The blood, its virtue used up, sinks to a temperature cold enough to bite, and that cold snaps my eyes open. One sweep of the room and I am fully awake, shaking my head, because falling asleep mid-soak in mythical level dragon blood is a new low even for me. I really have been running myself too hard. I climb out, wipe down, pull on a coat, and thank the 9 of them for standing watch and worrying. I tell them to rest and consolidate what they have gained, and to hold off on breeding until Wang Hyun has the dragon gene ready for fusion. Extraction will take time. The point is that only after the queens fuse with the dragon gene will the ants they breed carry it. Anything bred right now would come out ordinary and unfused, which burns resources for no return. I want Wang Hyun to move faster than he possibly can. A mythical level dragon gene is not a normal upgrade, and even with my ants already at the legendary rank, fusing something of that grade lands somewhere in the absurd range. Then I take a proper look at my own body, and surprise stops me flat. I seem to have broken through to the legendary mid-tier. I had thought I would need to meditate carefully to punch through that last membrane, and instead it happened as a side effect of a bath. Pleasant as that is, the breakthrough was expected sooner or later, so it does not shake me much. What genuinely knocks me sideways is the state of my body. Strength, constitution, agility. Every physical attribute I have has gone up by a full 1.5 times. That number does not add up, and my face must show it. A minor realm advance into the legendary mid-tier should improve my fitness somewhat, granted, but that improvement is measured off a legendary low-tier baseline and is worth 30% at the absolute outside. That leaves a full 120 percentage points unaccounted for, and aside from advancing, the only thing I did was take a bath. So one soak in dragon blood raised my physical fitness by 120 percentage points unaccounted for, and aside from advancing, the only thing I did was take a bath. So one soak in dragon blood raised my physical fitness by 120 percentage points. I refused to believe it for a while before thinking it through properly. 2 causes, stacked. The first is the dragon blood, and that is the heavy one, since blood already does good work on fitness and this came from a mythical level pure-blooded dragon. To someone stuck at the legendary rank it is pure medicine. It also pays out best exactly once, because my body has adapted to its transformation and a second bath would do close to nothing. The second cause is the 9 great ant queens, who soaked alongside me and improved as well. I hold the heart of the Lord, so every gain in their fitness feeds back into me. All 9 jumped at once, and the return through that channel was enormous. Both effects stacked, my advance layered on top, and the total came out at 1.5 times. Having worked out where the power came from, I reach along the species contract to feel out each queen's state, and the excitement drains out of my face. Their fitness has barely moved, which makes no sense. Their results should mirror mine, and since their fitness sat far below my own, the proportional gain should have matched mine or blown past it. I run the contract again and go through them properly, inside and out. The species contract lets me do more than glance at surface condition. If I want it, I can read the state of their individual cells. So I read them, and then I nearly laugh out loud. The queens did not raise their own physical fitness at all, and once I see it, it is obvious. A queen's specialization is breeding the swarm, and personal fitness was never the critical axis for her. What the dragon blood improved in them was breeding capacity. Their rate of producing ants has doubled outright, and every ant they now produce comes out with a full 50% boost to its physical fitness. That is not an improvement. That is a rewrite of my entire war machine. My core competitiveness has always been the ant army I put in the field, which means every small refinement to a queen multiplies across the whole swarm. Give every ant a queen breeds 10% more physical attributes. Run that across thousands upon thousands of bodies, and the total is already grotesque. This is not 10%, this is 50, and the attributes are only half of what I got, because the piece that really delights me is the breeding speed. Breeding speed has been my standing headache for a long time. Setting resources aside, it is the one factor keeping me from fielding an ant plague at the scale I want. These days, with different world after different world falling to me, resources have piled up, and pouring all of them into breeding would raise a legendary rank ant army of at least 3,000. Bound by how slowly legendary rank ants come out, my current count has only just crossed 1,000. Doubling the rate maximizes how fast I can turn a warehouse into combat power. Resources sitting in storage are not mine. They are just staying with me for a while. Only spent resources are strength. The one flaw in mythical level dragon blood is that it pays out best the first time. If it's stacked, I could pile my ant's attributes and breeding rate up to a genuinely terrifying place. But no world leaves a loophole like that open, and I am more than satisfied. Once I have digested every scrap of the blue dragon harvest, my overall combat power should roughly triple. All of it came down to luck. Stumbling across a mythical level dragon corpse in a world that unremarkable is not repeatable. Creatures of that grade normally turn up only in far higher worlds, blue level at the least and more likely purple. While Wang Heon works, I go consolidate. In a very short span I have crossed from legendary low tier to legendary mid tier, bathed in dragon blood and taken a Lord's Heart feedback surge worth another 1.5 times my attributes. Without drilling that in, my actual combat power could drop rather than rise, purely because I cannot control what I am holding. My power has been climbing too fast lately, and every trip home now has to end with serious consolidation work. I head for the virtual training force field on the 3rd floor of the Wizard Tower. Back when we were still clearing that different world with Baekwa's group, we agreed to take 1 day of rest and reorganization after the conquest. That was set because the world ran difficult, and because the unicorn dragon turtle, a top-tier existence among legendary mid-tiers, cost us badly. Without the turtle, we would not have needed even a single day. Nobody was thinking about follow-on harvests when the fighting stopped. Now that we are all holding legendary rank blue dragon resources, none of us will finish digesting inside 10 days to half a month. It is the problem of a starved man seated in front of a 40-course banquet. Getting all of it down takes time. Baekhyun messages me about exactly that, asking whether we should push the next operation back, since everyone harvested mythical level resources and has absorbed less than half. He says nobody has had their fill yet, and he is describing my own condition. Every portion I absorb returns a massive improvement, and I have gone slightly addicted to it. Mostly I am waiting on Wang Hyun to hurry the dragon gene out, so I can push it into each queen. Over the past few hours I have turned up at his biological laboratory no fewer than 5 times, and on the 5th visit he threw me out of his own lab. A short postponement gives him room to finish and fuse the gene into the queens, and I might even see the first ants bred afterward. What I cannot do is stall for long. I reply that an orange level world should not trouble us at our current level, so we can simply alternate. Take an orange level world, come back, rest and absorb, repeat. 1 extra day, I suggest, with the explanation to Baekhwa's group being that this trip drained us heavily. Baekhyun says that works, that Cheongda and the others also more or less want the extra day, so it is settled. He is about to close the connection when I cut back in and ask about 09, since she spent the most in that operation. If she has not finished recovering, we can push things further. He says he already asked her. The damage to her body was repaired long ago, though she has no clear direction yet on researching the materials she took. That is a long-term project that will not resolve in a day or two, and her position is that we should keep to the time we agreed. With no problem on her end I agree, and we lock in the extra day. After the call I go back to the virtual training force field. Will had been in there 3 hours before me, working through the same consolidation. His physical attributes matter as much as mine do, since he is a strength-type melee ability user. He also took a portion of dragon blood in the split, and his strength jumped hard enough that he had no choice but to drill it in. I use training the same way, as a means of numbing my nerves and dulling the itch of waiting on the experiment. Then Swift Shadow reports in, saying an unknown black island has been detected and is approaching. A black island heading my way stops me for a second, though it does not worry me. An approaching black island is not a threat but a delivery, territory and resources walking themselves to my shoreline. I have been busy with the United Alliance Commission and with digesting dragon materials, and I have not had time to go devour anything. I was not hunting for one, and one has come hunting for me. I am reaching for my gear when Swift Shadow adds the rest of it. It is not one black island, it is a full 30 or 40 of them, all now showing on the map, and going by their sailing speeds the nearest will border me in about 3 days. 4 of them are enormous. The largest runs over 1,300 units, and the other 3 giant black islands sit around 700 apiece. Those 4 move extremely fast, but they started further out, so they will not reach me for roughly 5 days. 30 or 40 black islands. I appear to have walked into a nest of them. When the first report came in I assumed a single island, and a single island is nothing, given that my strength sits at the top tier of the entire dark world. Running into a top-tier expert of equal footing down in this remote southern corner would not be logical in the first place. People at our level are apex predators, and having even one in a region is already rare, so 2 of them colliding by accident is not how the world works. 30 or 40 islands means an organization, and the only power near me is the Rogue Alliance, because nobody else could put that many hulls in the water. I have not provoked them, so I cannot think why they would come at me at this scale. Then I remember that 2 days ago I ate a black island. That one ran 344 units, a fairly serious holding, and in the southern region an island that size belongs to the Rogue Alliance by default. Judging by the response, whoever owned it must have held real rank inside the organization. So I did poke a hornet's nest, and I had genuinely forgotten about it. Mythical level resources had my whole attention, and annexing one island 2 days back filed itself away as a minor errand. It takes a moment of digging before the memory connects to the fleet bearing down on me. Facing a siege by 30 or 40 islands, I do not hurry. I pull the map pocket watch out of my inner coat pocket and look at the surrounding waters. Around the point of light marking my own black island, the northern arc is thick with other islands spread in a fan. Along the far northern edge, a few more dots are just beginning to resolve. The map pocket watch is a faithful copy of the map the Black Island core displays, and the core map only reaches so far, with everything past that range swallowed in black fog. Islands still driving in from outside the radius simply have not rendered yet. which is normal. So the count holds at 30 or 40 inbound, and just as Swift Shadow described, 4 of them dwarf the rest. Those 4 will be the Rogue Alliance's senior people. I rub my chin, watch the dots crawl toward me, and run the arithmetic. The closest will not border me for 3 days. Once that first contact happens though, more will arrive within an hour or 2, and 3 or 4 could easily be bordering me at the same moment. The trouble with that plan is what they are actually bringing. These chiefs hold 100 or 200 units, 300 and change at the very top. That puts them in the same bracket as the chief I devoured 2 days ago, meaning diamond rank peak and nothing above it. Ability users. At that level could have been crushed by the version of me that existed before the breakthrough and before the dragon. The version standing here now could fight at least 2 of that older self at once. However many come, they are not a threat, and every one of them is delivering population, land and resources to my door. On top of that I hold the Black Tower. Its sea control function changes the currents in the surrounding waters, which means I govern the sailing speed of my island and theirs alike. That turns the whole engagement into guerrilla work where I pick them off one at a time. Those blinking dots do not look menacing to me at all. They look like plump little piglets trotting in a line. I count them out. 15 sit at 100 and change, 10 at 200 and change, 7 at 300 and change, plus the 3 at 700 and the 1 past 1,300. Leave out the stragglers still outside the map, and taking all of them puts my Black Island past 10,000 units. Something that size has stopped being an island and become a continent. Picturing it leaves me stunned before I start laughing. Only a loner like me can devour Black Islands without a single scruple. Large organizations are knotted through with relationships, and even the leaders of major powers hit all sorts of difficulty when they try to swallow too many. They have delivered themselves, so I will accept the gift gladly. What I will not do is act now. The commission comes first, and the dragon resources get digested along the way. The plan stays exactly as it was. I have no intention of charging out and wiping this fleet off the water in one push, and there are 2 reasons. The first is time. A great deal of it remains before they close, and confidence in my strength is not the same thing as arrogance, so an extra window in which to get stronger is never wasted. That goes double while my power is climbing this fast. They chose to attack, which makes them the ones in a hurry. I can wait comfortably. The second reason is that hitting them too hard too early might scare off the islands that have not arrived yet. In my head, every island sailing toward me has already been entered in my ledger as property, and losing even one to a change of heart would hurt more than I care to admit. Even at my island's current speed, hunting down a Black Island costs 3 or 4 days, and that assumes the target does not run. A crowd this size steering itself into my mouth is a once-in-a-lifetime arrangement. I cannot let any of it slip, which means I need a way to take all of it. I think it over, and then my eyes come up, because I know exactly the place to give these people a proper welcome. It suits me perfectly, since I need days for the commission and days for digestion, and dragging the battle out makes both easier. I turn my Black Island south, away from the fleet, toward the far southern reaches I originally came from and whose terrain I know well. There is a stretch down there closed on 3 sides by rock with a single opening, a gorge-shaped cove with a narrow mouth and a deep belly. Lure 30 or 40 islands into that belly, work the currents, then use my island's speed to run a hidden side passage, and come back around to the only exit. Once there, I can make contact with a few of their islands and chain them hull to hull like a boom across the mouth of the gourd. After that I take them at leisure, and not one gets out. The only real difficulty is not outrunning my own bait. My Black Island is simply too fast, so I throttle it deliberately, holding a pace where the pursuers can just barely keep me on the map without ever closing. Most of them run 100 or 200 units and are slow accordingly. Mine is a full 656 units, so crawling would look ridiculous and give the act away. Instead, I trim about a quarter off my speed, which reads as nothing much on a map. Then, so the smallest islands do not lose me outright, I use the Black Tower's authority to lay a forward current across the water they are crossing, helping them chase me. It works exactly as intended. They keep their eyes on me and never gain a meter. I have now reached the point of personally accelerating the enemy fleet coming to kill me. If I had simply stopped, contact would have taken 3 days. Fleeing while they chase should stretch it to 7, which leaves me all the time in the world. I stop thinking about them and go back to the virtual training force field to keep working my body into its new shape. A day passes. It has been a day and a half since we harvested the dragon, and the appointment to rejoin Baikwa's group for the next orange-level world is nearly on us. I am sitting cross-legged on a meditation cushion half an hour past finishing the day's body-tempering lesson, when a message across the spiritual network breaks my concentration. It is Wang Hian, reporting that he has successfully extracted the dragon genes. My eyes snap open, and I come off the cushion, and the wizard tower is empty, a heartbeat later. I hit the door of the biological laboratory hard enough to bang it against the wall. Getting there from the tower took me under a minute, which is a fair measure of my state of mind. On the desk sit over a dozen glass bottles, each holding a different scrap of something giving off a faint blue fluorescence. Even through the glass I feel a thin pressure. I ask whether these are the extracted dragon gene fragments. Wang Hian coughs, his voice gone raspy, and confirms that all of them are right there. Then I actually look at him. Dark circles, swollen bags, eyes shot through with red, the whole man hollowed out as though something had drunk the life straight out of him. I do not need to ask what did it. Pulling the genes of a mythical level dragon apart was never going to be easy work. I tell him he worked hard and that this one is genuinely down to him, and a great many other words of thanks jam in my throat and never make it out. He shakes his head gently and says that for a researcher this is nothing. During his doctorate, he tells me, he lived in a laboratory for 3 straight months to produce a single set of data. Getting his hands on materials at this level is an enormous gain and the highest enjoyment he knows, and it was not hard at all. His face is exhausted and his eyes are lit with excitement and something close to fanaticism, and I can see he means it. The gratitude I had lined up evaporates, and I just tell him I understand. Then I make him a promise instead. Thanks to his work, I will keep getting stronger, and as I do, I will hunt bigger creatures, and every scrap of biological material I take will come to him first. In exchange, he has to look after his health, or there will be nobody left to hand the powerful materials to. He nods and says he understands, then adds that studying the dragon genes gained him a great deal. He believes he has sensed the threshold of the legendary rank. Once he advances, experiments at this level will not drain him the way this one did, and he asks me to keep leaving powerful biological materials to him in future. Wang Hian is about to break through to the legendary rank. The legendary rank is an enormous threshold. Baekhyun and I only crossed it 2 weeks ago, and across the whole dark world it remains the ceiling of existence. Plenty of combat-oriented ability users, who sharpen themselves through one lethal crisis after another, are jammed at the peak of diamond rank with no way through. Wang Hian is a research and production type, and he has his fingertips on the threshold anyway. If any of those combat specialists heard about this, I suspect they would want to go lie down somewhere quiet. I know the man well enough to know he never inflates anything, so if he says he is about to break through, then he is. I ask him, half in surprise, whether he really is that close. Then I ask something I realize I have never asked, which is what his ability actually is, since I have never once seen him use it. He lowers his head, pushes his glasses up, and a faintly unsettling smile crosses his face as he says his ability is a very interesting one. When I ask what he means by interesting, he says it is hard to describe and easier to demonstrate, and tells me to follow him. We end up at the wide training ground, built for drilling the territory's subjects in wartime, empty at present because there is no large-scale conflict to drill for. Wang Hian turns to face me and takes off his white lab coat, then peels off the long-sleeved shirt underneath, bearing an upper body so thin it looks half-starved. My pupils shrink. His skin is not a normal person's skin. It is composed of countless densely packed fragments, hundreds of distinct pieces in different shades, stitched together like a coat sewn out of mismatched cloth. Something about those fragments looks familiar, and my memory is good enough that the source surfaces almost immediately. I ask whether the things on his body are what I think they are, and he confirms it. Every fragment came out of the biological materials I gave him over the past months, extracted and fused onto himself. He goes further and tells me the whole direction of his ability was set by my gene extraction instrument. Before he came to work for me, he had no clear developmental path. Then he met the instrument, watched my experiments pushing genes into ants to rewrite their traits, and was captured completely. To break a gene chain, absorb the powerful genes of an entirely different creature, and fold them into his own use strikes him as the most captivating ability imaginable. His voice cracks and shakes as he says it, his hands carving shapes in the air, his expression tipping past enthusiasm into something eerie. I stand there with concern all over my face. I have always known Wang Hian was obsessed with biological work, and that obsession is precisely why he has produced so many breakthroughs in my aunt's evolution. What I never grasped was how far the madness ran. Pushing genes into ants is one thing. He has been using his own body as the experimental material. And looking at the patchwork on him, that means dozens of different creatures at minimum, quite possibly hundreds. Just imagining a human frame carrying that many foreign genomes makes my scalp crawl. Even my own ant queens, after breaking into the legendary rank, have at most 5 or 6 creature genes fused into them. Dozens or hundreds should tear a body apart. I tell him flatly that he is gambling with his own life, and that a gene chain collapsing under that much load does not bear thinking about. He straightens when he sees I am serious, pushes his glasses back into place, puts the smile away and answers with complete composure. He says he would never gamble with his own body, and that every fragment fused into him is the product of precise calculation. Before each fusion he runs extensive experiments and repeats the verification math at least 10 times. Some technology in this world reads as fantastical, he grants, but it is only more advanced technology and it still obeys physical law. If a process this thoroughly checked could go wrong, he says, then physics would not exist at all. I let out a breath and tell him bitterly that I am afraid he will experiment himself straight out of existence. I warn him not to lean too hard on his confidence, because this world sits far above Blue Star, and some of the axioms he learned back there may not hold here. Then I tell him to rest properly after days of this, and to come to me the moment anything gets difficult. I am no scientist, but my understanding of the dark world runs far deeper than his. The gene fusion for the ant queens, I add, can wait until he has slept. That last part is not boasting, since holding the Black Tower gives me a grasp of this world he cannot approach. I turn to go, because his condition makes me genuinely uneasy. Losing him to a gene chain collapse brought on by exhaustion would be a catastrophe. He shakes his head and says he is not that fragile and we can start at once. When I point out that he looks close to collapse, he replies that he is not as weak as he looks, and that the genes he has fused are not decorative. I do not know how to tell a man his patchwork skin is not doing much for him decoratively either. Then his body swells. In a single second, the thin, sunken frame becomes a slab of green-skinned muscle with a long tail hanging behind it. And that is only the start. He runs through 5 or 6 forms one after another, one covered in feathers with the arms drawn out into wings, another with webbed frog's hands, until watching him makes me dizzy. He settles at last on an earth-yellow shape and stops. He explains that the form comes from fusing the gene of a creature called a mound rat, which vastly improves recovery. In this state, he needs 10 minutes to gather enough energy to run the experiment. I look at him without a word while the image I had carried of a cold, precise laboratory technician dissolves and a mad scientist takes its place. I tell him that if he says it is fine, then it is fine, and we will fuse the dragon gene into the ant queens in 10 minutes. He was not exaggerating. 10 minutes later, he is back at optimal condition and goes straight into the work without pausing. I follow him to the laboratory because I care far too much to sit it out. Gene fusion is delicate work even if it costs less energy than extraction, so I stay outside the cultivation room rather than risk disturbing it. The transparent doors and windows let me watch anyway. All 9 queens are already there, but only one can be fused at a time, and the first up is the black scythe hunting ant queen, Manhwa. The other 8 press against the glass beside me, every one as tense and expectant as I am. Through the procedure, Wang Heon's body shifts form repeatedly, his hands rearranging as the task demands. They become fine blades at one moment, tentacles the next, and at one point split into 7 or 8 arms working in parallel. He runs the entire process alone, and watching him operate that smoothly I find myself smiling, because the ability suits him extraordinarily well. When he first described it I assumed it was a combat gift, and after seeing the transformations I no longer think so. My ants can only fuse 5 or 6 genes, but all 5 or 6 abilities express at once and work simultaneously. Wang Heon can fuse dozens or hundreds and reach any of them through transformation. Yet he can only occupy one biological state at a time. Both approaches have their strengths and their costs, and his fits him precisely. It only ruins his appearance somewhat, and given his personality, I doubt that has ever crossed his mind. 2 hours later, under his practiced hands, all 9 queens have fused with this blue dragon's genes. The reason extraction took so long was not only the dragon's mythical level realm, though the dragon might radiating off the material did interfere constantly. The larger reason is that he was separating out different gene fragments rather than pulling one gene and calling it finished. Every creature carries an enormous number of fragments inside its genome, and each governs wildly different functions and traits. Within the dragon gene alone, some fragments raise strength, some control defense, others handle recovery. My ants each specialize in a different direction, so fusing the same crude gene into all of them would be senseless. You could hardly push a strength-boosting fragment into Bright Mirror, a clear ant queen whose entire craft is spiritual power. When I first held the gene extraction instrument, I could only pull one gene out of a creature, and my use of it was blunt to the point of embarrassment. As an actual professional, Wang Hian is not that clumsy. Rather than waste a mythical-level dragon, he poured his effort into isolating the fragments that suited each of the 9 great ant queens specifically. Every one of them has been strengthened along her own line of expertise. Take Mars, the self-destruct ant queen, whose entire specialty is fire attribute attack, and whose attributes therefore clash with a clearly water attribute dragon. Wang Hian went hunting through the fragments and pulled out one that increases energy storage density, and fusing it doubled her storage density outright. For a creature whose function is detonation, that is a monstrous gift. Bright Mirror received the fragments tied to spiritual power instead, since a pure-blooded dragon's dragon might comes half from bloodline and half from spirit. He isolated the spiritual half and fed it to her. The rest of the queens were handled the same way, each taking whatever piece of that dragon fit her best. The most outrageous result belongs to Vast Waves. As the blue water ant queen, she is a water element specialist by nature. The blue dragon was a water element dragon, which made her the most compatible recipient in the room. Where the other queens improved by somewhere between 1 and 2 times over, Vast Waves improved by a full 3.5 times, roughly half again as much as anyone else got. The dragon was not the only thing on the table. Wang Hian also fused the unicorn dragon turtle fragments in, sorted by compatibility the same way. Turtle genes fall well short of a mythical level dragon's, but there was only ever one dragon, and any ant may fuse the genes of a single creature only once. Every ant has 6 gene fusion slots to fill, and absent a better option, a peak legendary rank unicorn dragon turtle is a very good option. That fusion lifted the queens by roughly 10 to 30% overall. Far behind the dragon, obviously, and still excellent, because past the legendary rank, every fraction of strength is brutally hard to buy. The moment the fusions finish, I send all 9 back to the ant nest to breed at maximum effort, since anything they produce from here carries the new genes. Carrying 2 powerful genes, and the dragons in particular, the ants coming out are considerably stronger, and as a result, each takes slightly longer to produce. Fortunately, the bloodbath already doubled their breeding rate, so even with the drag, the throughput has improved substantially. Time runs on, and at last, half an hour before the appointed meeting, all 9 queens have produced their first ant carrying the mythical level dragon gene. I call the 9 over and go through them one at a time. They share obvious commonalities and carry their own distinctions on top, and all of them show a trace of that dragon somewhere. The tunneling ants, which took the defense-enhancing fragment, have grown a thick layer of scales in exactly the blue dragon's shape. The color is the earthy yellow that matches a tunneling ant, and the size is right for its frame. The other types carry their own borrowed features to varying degrees. Beyond that, every one of them gives off a faint, nearly undetectable pressure, and I recognize the flavor immediately. It is dragon might. Nowhere near as pure or as heavy as a true pure-blooded dragon's, and unmistakably the same substance. Which raises a question worth chewing on. My ants now carry a thread of dragon might, so do they count as dragon-type creatures? I decide they do. The unicorn dragon turtle earned that label by drinking dragon chi beside a corpse for years, and my ants have fused the dragon's actual genes, so the claim is far stronger. Push it further and the picture gets ridiculous, because once every gene slot my ants have is filled with mythical level genes, they will stand close to true mythical level creatures on bloodline alone. I want that badly, and I also know it is not remotely easy. Mythical level genes come from killing a mythical level creature outright, from scavenging a corpse as I just did, or from extracting them out of items forged with mythical level materials. None of those is simple, so I will take it slowly. My manual starts chiming. It is Baek Hyun asking whether I am ready, and I realize half an hour has vanished, and the meeting time has arrived. I tell him there is no problem on my end, and he says to meet at the usual place and not be late. I move at once, taking every ant I have, including the 9 dragon-blooded ones, just born. All the queens stay behind on Black Island, Swift Shadow among them, with a single instruction between them, which is to breed at full speed and do nothing else. Then I open the manual, select the Dark Island interface, and vanish. I reach Dark Island and find Baek Hyun and the others already gathered, along with our 3 employers, Bakhwa and her companions. I am the last to arrive. 2 days apart has left everyone's aura noticeably heavier, and the 5 of us who split a mythical level dragon have moved furthest of all. Bakhwa's group knows nothing about that extra harvest, so what they see is 5 people whose talent apparently towers over their own, and it visibly rattles them. One of them wonders where on earth Bakyeon dug up this many monsters. The pressure sits heavy on all 3 employers as they take in the auras coming off us. The question underneath it is whether they can realistically contest the Black Tower in this region with the 5 of us in the picture. What they do not know is that we hold a mutual aid contract letting us teleport to each other. Seeing all 5 of us surface in the same dark island area, they conclude we must all be based in the eastern region of the Dark World. Baekhyun and Cheongha they can account for, since United Alliance members owe each other a certain professional courtesy. Janghyun, 09 and Will are names they have never heard in their lives, and in a straight contest for the Black Tower they would not stand a chance. One of them mutters that they put up orange-level fragments to commission this team to clear the stage, and asks whether they have just gift-wrapped the fruits of their own labor. Baekhwa answers that things have gone too far to change, so they stick to the original plan. Even losing the contest, she says, buying goodwill from powerhouses of this caliber counts as a decent return, and that kind of goodwill is not cheaply earned. The 3 of them weigh it and let the subject drop. Soon after, we burn another complete orange-level world beacon and go. What none of us notices is the hooded, masked figure watching from a distance the whole time. As the beacon takes us, he snorts coldly and turns away, remarking that escaping that turtle alive means they were simply lucky. The figure is Joe Kang, who abandoned the group and ran in the previous world. Having felt the unicorn dragon turtle's power against his own body, he does not believe for a second that we killed it to earn our exit. He is certain we did what he did and burned a spare beacon to escape. An hour later, my party of 9 comes out of the spatial turbulence onto an orange-level planet. The place has no elemental affinity I can detect and looks thoroughly ordinary, and we scout it properly anyway. Cheongha goes first, since through the power of the world tree she can survey the biological strength of an entire world at once. What she is looking for is any existence at an extremely high level, not the specific strength of every creature down there, which is beyond even her. She closes her eyes and emerald light pulses off her body in waves. 5 minutes later, she opens them and tells us she has found nothing exceeding the legendary rank. With that, we are cleared to work freely. Had she found a creature above the legendary rank, we would have burned a beacon and left inside a second. For all our improvement, we still have enough self-awareness to know the gap between us and a mythical level creature is enormous. With nothing at that grade present though, the calculus has changed since last time. Even if we ran into another unicorn dragon turtle now, the 5 of us would kill it easily, and 09 would not need to reach for those abilities of hers that carry heavy side effects. I tell them there is nothing here beyond our capacity, so we should not waste time and should split up on the usual rules. Baekhyun and the others nod and turn to pick their directions, and it is then that Hyo Minho awkwardly calls after us, to ask what the 3 of them are supposed to do. I look back, think about it, and tell them they can rest here a while, since my aunts scouted the area already and the vicinity is very safe. If they cannot sit still, I add, they are welcome to walk around. He answers with some embarrassment that they will wait right here, and the 5 of us scatter into the world to start killing its legendary rank creatures. Watching the 5 backs disappear, Hyo Minho smiles bitterly and says out loud that they are being looked down on. The 3 of them are chosen ones wherever they go, he complains. So when have they ever eaten a slight like this? Baekhwa finds an open patch of grass, produces a chair, sits down and tells him not to blame anyone for it. Their strength genuinely towers over the 3 of them, she points out, and the 3 of them did make a mess of things in the last world. Better to sit here and cause no further trouble. Lee Mook drops onto the grass and agrees with her. They will wait, he says, and at that team's pace the whole thing should be finished in about 4 hours, so it is hardly a long wait. Hyo Minho looks at him with open doubt and asks whether it can really go that fast, granting that they are very strong and still calling 4 hours a stretch. Baekhwa shakes her head and says it is no stretch at all. In the previous different world, that team's clearing speed was already frightening, and now that their strength has climbed another step it will only be faster. Hyo Minho concedes the point, allowing that even if it runs over 4 hours it will not run over by much, then sits down beside Lee Mook to wait. An hour later a roar goes through the world like a struck bell, and the 3 of them come off the grass in one motion, meditation abandoned, staring at each other. One asks what that noise was. Another says the aura in it feels like some powerful creature waking up. Baekhwa turns toward the distance with shock spreading across her face and asks whether this world's proxy creature could have awakened. The 5 of them must have killed so many legendary rank creatures that the world could no longer sit still and summon it, she says. Which means the final battle is already here. Lee Muck and Hyo Minho cry out together, both faces going pale. The aura is unmistakable, one of them says, because even he can feel the pressure rolling off it, and it can only be the proxy creature. Hyo Minho keeps talking mostly to himself, dazed by the arithmetic. He never imagined that team could force the proxy creature out in a single hour. He had thought 4 hours to clear the world was already a generous estimate of their speed, and instead they are this ridiculous 1 hour. He spends longer than that eating in a day, and they are already closing out an orange-level world. He does not get to finish the thought, because a message lands in his mind telling him the mission is complete and they may return. We come back through the teleportation array with the world core in hand, and Hyo Minho and the other 2 are still half stunned. An orange-level world, double-digit legendary rank creatures, and a proxy creature for the world. Will that reach legendary upper tier? Those are existences the 3 of them might fail to conquer after burning every card they own, and the 5 of us took the place apart like a toy. Their shock burns off within the hour anyway, because this has stopped being an event for them and become a routine. We hold a short accounting once the fighting is done. About an hour lost inside the spatial turbulence, then another hour on the ground killing legendary rank creatures and dragging the proxy creature out to die. 2 hours per orange-level world at our current strength. Baekhyun thinks the killing can be tightened enough to shave 10 minutes off, and nobody disagrees that the turbulence is the piece we cannot touch. Worse, the hunt for a planet inside it is random, rather than a clean hour, so we settle on 2 hours as the honest number. Then somebody does the arithmetic out loud. 17 orange-level worlds was the original commission. Joe Kang walked out with 4 beacons and we have already cleared 2, which leaves 11. 11 at 2 hours apiece comes to 22 hours, which does not even reach a full day. A week of careful work just folded itself down into 1 bad night's sleep. The old plan was to take 1 world and then rest a day to digest the dragon materials, and that plan is now obviously wrong. I put it to the others plainly. 1 day, nearly no sleep, tiring at worst. And for what we are now, that is nothing. The answer comes back from every direction, that we should finish it in 1 breath and that dragging it out costs more than the fatigue does. So I asked Baekhyun to tell Bakhwa and the others to be ready to close out the remaining 11, without a break. He goes off to send it looking far too pleased. The 3 take the news badly. Hyo Minho and Lee Mook are openly stunned, one asking whether we have lost our minds, the other counting the world that just ended and arriving at 12 in a row. Bakhwa thinks it over and says the 3 of them had it wrong from the start. That last world took us 1 hour, and they assumed we went all out to manage it. Even at full effort, she says, an hour for an orange-level world is slightly past what they can imagine. Looking at it now, that hour is not our limit but our working pace, repeatable 12 times over with no rest between. Feeling the size of the gap, the 3 sit with a weight settling onto their chests that none of them can shift. Bakhwa has the easiest time of it. Baekhyun is her cousin and a back family man, and the stronger his squad grows, the more the family gains. What eats at her is narrower. This is the useless cousin she spent her childhood looking down on, and his strength has climbed past where she can see, and his teammates are each more absurd than the last. It is not fear. It is the frustration of being outrun by someone she had already written off. Hyo Minho and Lee Mook stand somewhere else entirely. They share no blood and no marriage with Baekhyun or with me. Their 2 families in the Baek family sit inside the same small United Alliance faction for now. But heirs of great houses are not naive enough to call that solid. It is shared interest and public performance, nothing sturdier. Competition in the dark world hardens every month, and sooner or later the 2 sides collide over territory and profit. Picturing themselves across a battlefield from opponents of our caliber turns both of them cold from the inside out. Hyo Minho decides on the spot that this cannot continue. In the dark world, the strong are respected, and whatever family authority still counts back on Blue Star is scrap paper out here. He needs arrangements made early, and it occurs to him that Baekhyun, myself, and the white-armored powerhouse whose name he never learned all appear to be unmarried. He resolves to carry a marriage alliance back to his clan. Lee Mook catches his eye in the same moment, and each can see the other running the same sum. After that, the 3 follow us out again. As usual, they find a safe corner and wait while the 5 of us split by direction, killing legendary rank creatures until the world has no choice but to surface. The first world takes 45 minutes, the second takes 46, the third 53, the 11th 39. Across 11 orange-level worlds, travel time excluded, not one holds us past an hour. The difficulty varies, and some are as ugly as the first orange-level world we entered, but nothing slows us enough to matter. When the full day of combat ends, I am still running clean, without even the edge of fatigue. Ants carrying the dragon gene are worth roughly 3 times what they were before the fusion. My only real complaint is how few of them there are. The laboratory numbers said 1 to 2 times. 3 is nowhere near what the data promised, but I watched the whole fight myself, and the data is simply behind. When an ant carrying the dragon gene comes at an enemy, the enemy goes blank for a beat before it can respond. The lower the target's realm, the uglier that blank spot gets. A gold rank or platinum rank target stands there dazed for a second or two. In front of a legendary rank ant, a second is enough to kill something a dozen times and still be thorough. It is dragon might. The gene carries a thread of it across into the ants, and while that thread is poor next to what an actual mythical grade dragon radiates, then dragon might is still dragon might. The pressure belongs to a tier so far above everything around it that a sparse dose stays unanswerable to anything of low realm. The second discovery is the one that delights me. When my 9 dragon gene ants gather in one place, the dragon might stacks, and the combined effect is more than the sum. A lower tier diamond rank enemy facing a single dragon gene ant is essentially unaffected, never stunned, at most a little rattled. Put 9 together, and that same enemy freezes for close to half a second, which is neither subtle nor deniable. So the pressure is additive, and the obvious question follows on its own. Once I have cultivated enough of them, how far up does that stack go? I catch myself grinning and shake it off. If I ever met a mythical grade dragon, and my ants pressed it flat until it could not lift its head, the poor thing would start doubting its own existence. Still, I have serious resources now, and my cultivation throughput has improved considerably. Keep accumulating, and that stops being a joke. This trip did not merely add 13 to our count of conquered worlds. All 13 are ours, resource-rich everyone. Split 5 ways, that averages to the full yield of nearly 3 orange-level worlds each, which is the kind of haul that changes what a man can afford to attempt next. We gather one last time on Dark Island in front of the guiding stele, all 5 of us, and all 3 of them, with every orange beacon spent. I thank them for the beacons, note that everyone has worked a full day without a break, and suggest we disperse. Hyo Minho hurries forward before I can go. He stumbles over what to call me, starting on my full name and correcting himself into something warmer. Then he thanks us and says he cannot guess how long it would have dragged on had their side attempted so many worlds alone. Once the Hyo family accumulates more beacons, he adds, "We might work together again." I tell him we will discuss it when the opportunity comes. Wave once, and blur out of the Dark Island space. Baekhyun complains through a yawn that I slipped away fast, admits he is wrecked, and vanishes as well. Cheonga and the others follow one after another until only the 3 of them are left standing there. Bakhwa glances at the other 2, says quietly that she should report to the patriarch, and takes her leave. Inside a minute, only Hyo Minho and Lee Mook remain, both annoyed and neither hiding it. Hyo Minho complains that everyone ran off before he could raise the marriage alliance, and Lee Mook admits he never found his opening either. They agree there is nothing to do but take it back to their clans, and they leave Dark Island together, plainly regretting the wasted afternoon. A few minutes after they clear out, 7 figures appear in front of the guiding stele. One is a burly shape in a black bear mask, and it is Jo Kong who walked out of my team and has evidently found himself a new one. By the look of them, they have just come back from the different world. Jo Kong is loud and delighted, praising a young man in a lion mask and silver-white armor as a genuine credit to the Rochester name. He says Desmond cleared that orange-level world with insulting ease, and that the javelin throw at the end put the proxy creature down. Desmond returns the compliment, telling Jo Kang their pace through instances has improved noticeably since he joined. Then he asks the question underneath the flattery, which is why Jo Kang is here at all. He remembers that Jo Kang went out with core members of the Baek, Hyo and Lee families, alongside a squad from outside the United Alliance. He points out that relations between the Jo family and the Rochester family are nothing special. The truth of it is that Jo Kang's new team is also drawn from United Alliance factions, only these are the factions hostile to the block of Korean houses his own family belongs to. Jo Kang spits on the ground and tells him not to bring it up. He does not know what the old men in his family were thinking, pairing them with a wild squad that never joined any faction. And he asks what strength such a team could have. In their very first world, he says, that squad did something stupid and provoked the proxy creature after only 4 hours. Then they could not fight it at all and ended up in a pathetic state. Failing on the first attempt was enough for him. and staying after that would mean something was wrong with his brain. Wasted beacons are a small matter next to getting himself killed inside. He is beautifying his own conduct and slandering ours in the same breath, wearing the resentful face of a man who was cheated. The others shake their heads and laugh. They tell him they knew the plan was garbage the moment the Back family floated it in council, and that events proved them right. They tell him he should simply run the different world with them from now on. In their team, every member has a council seat behind him, and out of 12 council members, they already hold half. If Zhou Kang can talk his patriarch into coming over, that makes 7, enough to decide any resolution the United Alliance puts forward. Zhou Kang laughs that it is easy to say, then admits he has already raised the matter with the Zhou family elder. Desmond says that is for the best, and proposes they rest a day and keep clearing orange-level worlds. Zhou Kang crows that taking an orange-level world in a single day is deeply satisfying. He adds that Bakhua and her 2 companions, stuck following people like me, have surely not conquered even one yet, and must be regretting it terribly. Then he leaves Dark Island with Desmond and the other 5, wearing the expression of a man who has just made the smartest decision of his life. He is right that somebody is regretting something. He is only wrong about which side of the stele that person is standing on. Our team failed to conquer exactly 0 worlds. In one short day we took 11, better than 10 times his own team's efficiency, and his assumptions keep the number away from him. He goes on drifting in the pleasure of having joined a strong team, and nobody there has any reason to correct him. Back on my Black Island, I tidy up briefly and hand over everything the trip produced. I tell Tak Mungiel these are the harvests from the different world runs. He should take them to Bright Mirror and work with her to process the lot, converting it into whatever forms the various ant queens need for cultivating ants. Then I tell him I am going to sleep, and that anything else can wait until I wake. He says there is no problem at all, and to leave it to him, which he always says, and which is one reason I keep him. I hand the storage ring to a sentry ant to carry over, fall onto the bed, and go straight down. 11 worlds back to back, 12 counting the one before, and a full day without a genuine stop. Orange-level worlds are not difficult for us now, but they are not safe enough to be careless in either, and we were pushing the edge of our speed the whole time. It is the difference between a sprinter jogging 100 meters and a sprinter running it flat out, and the two do not resemble each other from the inside. My spiritual power stayed strung tight the entire way, and body and mind both came out drained. The moment I am somewhere familiar with nothing hunting me, all of it lets go, and I drop into a sleep deep enough to dream. I have not dreamed in a very long time. Since my strength reached lower tier diamond rank, my spiritual power has been too dense for it, and the stronger the spirit, the harder dreaming becomes. At legendary mid-tier, carrying more spiritual power than a normal legendary mid-tier holds, I could not manufacture one on purpose, so I lie there and take the strange gift of it, brows tightening and loosening. Then my expression sets hard, and the sweat starts coming cold, and whatever I am in has stopped being a gift. I come up out of it, shouting at something not to do something. Then I am sitting upright in the dark, panting like a man who ran here, both fists knotted in the quilt. It takes several seconds before I can name the room. A dream. It was only a dream, and I am absurdly grateful for the distinction. I go back through it while the sweat dries. There was a pitch-black space with nothing in it, and 09, and no one else. She had gone wrong somehow. I called her, and she would not turn, and I chased her and could not close the distance no matter how hard I ran. Only when my throat had gone raw and my legs had given out did she finally stop and look at me. It is her face I cannot put down. Strange, cold, and past cold into something almost dead. The look she gave me was the look you give a stranger, and then I understood it was worse, because it was the look you give an enemy. The fear that comes off that is not fear of her strength. 09 could not threaten me, and I know it. It is that a comrade I have fought beside and eaten beside turned on me without warning and without heat. The closeness simply inverted, in a single silent second. What it left behind is the feeling of having lost something I did not know I could not replace. Any ordinary person could have that dream, and millions of them do, every night, over nothing. I do not get to treat mine that way. My spiritual power keeps growing on two fronts. It feeds back to me from the heart of the Lord as my mutual aid contract ants grow stronger, and it arrives in bulk from Bright Mirror and the clear ants she cultivates. At the intensity I carry now, a dream cannot be noise. It is closer to divination, an omen delivered through the only channel that stays open while I sleep. So the question becomes what it meant. Is something going to happen to 09? I close my eyes and walk back carefully through the last several days with her. She has been operating right alongside us and nothing looked wrong. And I have nearly finished convincing myself of that when the whole thing turns over. The unicorn dragon turtle. That creature stood at the peak of legendary rank. It was dragon-blooded and carried the giant creature attribute. It was famous for its defense, and its vitality was obscene even among things that refused to die. 09 ended it in a single instant. Whatever ability does that is not the easy casual thing she made it sound like when we asked. And she paid a price none of us were shown. I go back through her behavior after that fight with new eyes, and the more carefully I look, the worse it gets. Her body showed nothing. What changed is that she had gone cold. Not cold in the body, cold in temperament, in the thing you feel across a room from a person. What came off her was less like a living human than like a machine running quietly with nobody home in it. And I know that sensation from the inside, because it resembles what happened to me when I first advanced. Both times I broke through, into diamond rank and then legendary rank, my thinking started sliding toward the shape of an ant. That is half of why I kept going into the virtual training force field to meditate. The other half was settling my body after a flood of power. But the real work was scraping my mind back off the colony every time it drifted. As the realm rises, consciousness bends toward the direction of the power that lifted it. I have never decided whether that bend is good or bad. All I have is an instinct saying a man should keep the shape of mind he started with. So the hypothesis writes itself. 09 used some high-cost technique to kill that turtle, and the cost accelerated her consciousness along the direction of her own power. Her power is mechanical to its roots, and a mind sliding toward machinery would look exactly like what has been sitting across the table from me for days. That worries me more than an injury would. Every power direction ends somewhere inhuman. Mine is ant control, and when I drift it does not make me cold in the machine sense. It makes me cold-blooded, willing to treat survival and objective as the only two facts in the world and to spend anything at all on them. That version of me is a monster with good manners, and it is not an improvement. If 09's consciousness is already being deformed, she needs the warning fast. Once a mind finishes adapting to a machine's mode of thought and sets in that shape, there is nothing left to warn. I do not even stop to check the ant cultivation numbers or the pursuit behind my island. I grab the manual and send to her directly. Several minutes pass and nothing comes back, and I feel my frown deepen before I force it flat. It has only been a few days, so it should not be that far along. We fought at high intensity for a solid day, and an ability user like me with an absurd physical base still needed 8 straight hours of sleep. Her build has never been the physical kind, so she must be wrecked too, and there is nothing strange about her sleeping through a message. I make myself accept that, because the thing has already happened and chewing on it buys nothing. And I have a second problem that will not hold still while I worry about the first. There are between 30 and 40 black islands strung out behind mine, and every one of them is hunting me. Judge fairly, that is not much less severe than 09's situation. Only the shape of the trouble differs. Before I turn to it, I send to Will, Baekhyun, and Cheonga. I ask whether they felt something similar, and say plainly that I suspect 09 has taken a backlash from her own power. She was always quiet, but quiet is not the same as cold-blooded, and what comes off her now is wrong. I tell them I am going into seclusion immediately, and that since I could not reach her, watching her falls to them. They are her teammates, and this is what teammates get told. Then I put the manual down and take the map pocket watch out of my coat. 8 hours of sleep on top of a full day in the different world means close to a day and a half gone. At my island's set speed, I should be drifting up on the gourd-shaped mouth of that dangerous place by now. The only real question is whether the people behind me have noticed anything, or whether they are still clamped onto my wake with their teeth. The dial answers before the thought finishes. The light spot that is my black island blinks rapidly, and each blink walks it a little further toward the southern region. Behind it, the spots come in a dense crowd, sorted by distance into 4 clean layers. The nearest group is 4 islands, and those 4 began dead last in the entire pursuit. The one over 1,300 units leads them now, with 3 islands over 700 units riding close behind. They started at the back and hauled themselves to the front over a day and a half, purely because a larger island sails faster. The second formation is 7 islands over 300 units. The third is 10 over 200, and the last and largest is 15 over 100. The whole arrangement sorts strictly by area, as neat as if somebody had ordered it, and nobody did. Sailing speed tracks island area, so a fleet running flat out always shakes itself into this pattern. The Rogue Alliance did not organize this. Physics did. I look at 4 islands closing on me, everyone bigger than mine, and find nothing in my face that needs changing. Good, they have not given up. At this rate they reach me in another day or so, and since I need 2 more days to be fully inside that gourd-shaped ground, being caught now would ruin everything. So I keep acting. My island carries the ocean current blessing from the Black Tower, so its real speed runs far higher than what those people have been watching. The only reason several distant giants close this fast is that I have been throttling myself on purpose. The error crept in while I was conquering different worlds with no attention left to steer precisely, and a small error is nothing. I trim it and move on. After that it becomes a slow, ugly dance. The pursuit creeping nearer and never quite arriving, and I keep that gap alive for 2 more days. At the end of them, my black island pushes through the gourd-shaped opening, with just enough visible hesitation to look like a mistake. They think they are chasing me. I am walking them, on a very short leash, into a room with 1 door. The pursuit has spent those 2 days in a foul mood. My island keeps behaving like a greased eel, and every time they are certain they have cornered it, it slides free. That infuriates the black-haired female elder running the operation. She complains aloud that the target's island is plainly not fast and they still cannot lay a hand on it. The maid in the goose-yellow dress soothes her while keeping one eye pressed to a monocular telescope. Seol tells her the target has clearly worked this southern region for years and knows the water far better than they do. Even with the speed advantage, she says, he keeps finding vortex zones and rock fields to bleed their pace. Then she adds the part that matters, which is that they brought 36 chiefs on this hunt, and no amount of slipperiness gets a man out of a net that size. Nam Jian nods and lets her face go smooth. A moment later, Seol calls out in delight that something is happening, and the elder's eyes narrow. The target, Seol reports, was cut off on the right flank by the 3rd elder. The 2 islands came close enough to touch and nearly dropped into combat status, and the slippery thing dodged out of it. Nam Jiang frowns at the waist. An island locked in combat status cannot move, and with that, many of their own swarming in, they could have finished the business on the spot. Seol says it is a pity, but the evasion cost him something. Force left, he ran headfirst into a gourd-shaped stretch of terrain. Nam Jiang pulls up the map and her brow smooths into a thin smile. In his panic, the target has run into a dead end with a single mouth. The interior is roomy enough, but the entrance is very narrow. Plug that entrance with a handful of subordinates, walk the rest of the fleet in behind him, and there is nowhere left for him to be. After so many days of nothing, she says, this is finally progress. The relief underneath it is not really about him. The strong contender for the 5th elder's seat had been close to the 3rd elder. Ever since she rose fast and took that seat instead, she has been on terms with the 3rd elder that no apology could repair, and he opposes her on reflex. Now, with the Alliance leader shut in seclusion, an elite member under her jurisdiction has been devoured whole. The 3rd elder has been making as much noise about the blunder as he can carry, and she has no idea what version of it reaches the Alliance leader. Her only luck is that the seclusion buys time to erase the mistake before anyone senior is listening. She gives the order. 1 elite member and 5 ordinary members seal the entrance, and everyone else follows her in to close on the target. Seol says she will pass it along at once, lifts her skirt, trots aside and works through a slate-like communication tool, calling chief after chief. 5 minutes later, all 36 islands split as instructed. The plug group is the smallest and weakest, and its assignment is simple to the point of insult, which is to sit in the doorway and be an obstacle. Anyone who wants past has to touch their islands, and 2 black islands that touch are locked in combat status until one devours the other, so those chiefs do not need strength. They need only to exist in the way until help arrives. The rest form the main force under Nam Jian, running the target down inside. Against a setup like that, an island of 700 units is trapped, and so is one over 1,000. The 36 move fast and cleanly.